Hey everybody, this is Cameron from Obnoxious and Anonymous, and welcome to the Twin Peaks Thought of the Day for Thursday, June 15th, 2017. My guest today needs no introduction, but I'm going to give him one anyway. You've seen him on here before a few times, Mr. Joel Bocko of Lost in the Movies. Joel, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Now, you haven't been on the show since Twin Peaks 2017 or Twin Peaks The Return officially started. So before we get into your viewpoints on the show, I just have to ask, have you seen the announcement about the episode titles for 9 through 12?
Yes, I did. I remember.
Well, hang on a second. For those who don't know, okay, this coming Sunday, this coming Sunday's episode is called "There's a Body All Right." The next,
and we knew that one from before, right?
Right.
That was one of the originally announced.
Yeah. And then
I remember you telling some of them.
Right. So the one we just had was "Don't Die." The one that's coming up is called "There's a Body All Right." After that will be part 8, which is "Got a Light." Then after that, on July 9th, 2017, part 9 is titled "This is the Chair."
Okay.
Then on July 16th, 2017, part 10 is titled "Laura is the One." It's kind of funny how you have the previous one is "This is the Chair," and then you have "Laura is the One." Yeah, right. It kind of reminds me of "This is the Girl." Then on July 23rd, 2017, part 11 is called "There's Fire Where You Are Going." That actually scares me, what could happen in that episode.
Yeah, that's one of the coolest titles.
Then we have ending part 12 on July 30th, 2017. It's just simply titled "Let's Rock." Now, some people might say, hey, those episode titles, those could be potential spoilers, but if you look at what the previous episodes have been called and then how they use those titles in the episodes, sometimes it's just random. It's like case files. Well, it ended up being the case files that Dougie got at work. So it's even though obviously Hawk and Andy are going through the case files at the sheriff's station, it's not like anything's like direct, this is completely spoiling everything that's going to happen in this episode. So Are you pleased with how the episode sounds so far, though? Do you like the titles?
Yeah, no, well, one thing that's interesting, and I'm trying to open it up. My browser's going a little slowly, just because we're doing the conversation too. But I'm pulling up the episode titles we've seen so far, and just kind of taking a look at who said what, because that's kind of one of the interesting things is all of the titles are actual quotes from the episode. So I assume they're going to keep being that way as well.
I can tell you right now. Part 1 was "My log has a message for you." Obviously, it's the log lady.
Right. Obviously enough, yeah.
Part 2 was "The Stars Turn and a Time Presents Itself." Also the log lady.
Okay.
Part 3 was "Call for Help," which was Cooper, Dougie. Part 4 is "Brings Back Some Memories," Bobby Briggs. Part 5 was "Case Files," Dale Cooper or Dougie. And part 6 was "Don't Die," which was the One-Armed Man. So that's what we know so far.
Hold on a second. Let me just... Yeah, that's right. Interesting. One-Armed Man.
Yeah.
And then, hold on. Okay, so Log Lady has said 2 of them.
Right.
And all the other ones have been by different people.
Except for Cooper and Dougie. Yeah, he's got 2 of them.
Well, because Case Files, the boss says, though, first, right?
Right.
God, why is this going so slow? Sorry.
Sorry.
You have flying ants all around me, too. Okay, so let me... I give up.
That's okay.
You'll have to be.
That's fine.
You'll have to be the reference person in this one. My computer can't do.
It's not a problem. It's not a problem.
But yeah, so to see who says these different things.
Yes.
I mean, that puts it in a whole new light. When you read me the episode titles
Mm-hmm.
a couple, or I guess a month ago or so, less than a month. It really amazing how much has gone underwater has gone under the bridge since then. But when you first read them to me, it was like, okay, well, this could be anything. But now hearing these ones, I'm thinking somebody's going to say these things to somebody, and what context they're going to say it in. So that in itself is kind of interesting.
Definitely.
Guess which ones are going to say what.
Right. Now, those who watch this channel know that ever since this show started, I told you I was going to be doing just nonstop Twin Peaks videos, and I've kept my promise. So people have heard me rant and ramble about all kinds of awesome things in this show. So I'm going to do something that I rarely ever do on this podcast, which is I'm going to turn it entirely over you after my first question. So after my first question, Joel, you are free to take this conversation about this new series wherever you want to go, and let's just have some fun with it. My first question is, what do you think of this series so far after 6 episodes, after we're done with 1/3 of this new series? Where are you right now in terms of this new show?
Well, I'm really enjoying it. I said going in that my main thing that I was kind of excited about was more Lynch material. So I wasn't necessarily like, I think some of the who were more disappointed kind of had an expectation of how is this going to fulfill Twin Peaks, or how is this going to bring back that feeling of Twin Peaks. And for me, that was like, I love the Twin Peaks we had, and I was never somebody who was like looking for more. So it was like, oh, this is just a bonus. So for me, just been fascinating to kind of see where Lynch is at now, and also how him and Frost work together, because we've never really seen that before, other than the pilot, really, and maybe the first couple episodes, and if you look up their screenplays here and there, but they didn't write the whole first series together. It was like a tag team back and forth. So now we're kind of seeing what a real collaboration between them looks like, and it's kind of fascinating. So all that stuff interests me, but I'm kind of taking it as its own thing and seeing where it goes. I think so far part 5 was probably my personal favorite. I just thought it had the best kind of balance of everything, and probably some of my favorite moments of the whole series so far. I think the Becky thing, definitely, where the music starts playing, and that was just like euphoric, it was great. I really love the moment at the end where he's touching the statue and the song's playing. Mm-hmm. It kind of changes a little because they pick it right up there in the next episode, like almost like, they're just going to jump right back in.
But remember that.
But when it was just that moment.
Well, remember, it was one movie. So
yeah, exactly.
I've been joking recently that maybe this was the script for the 9 episodes, and the reason why it's 18 is because everything's just slowed down. Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised at all. I mean, there's a lot of stuff here to put in 9 episodes, so maybe some of it's new, but a lot of it is just taking your time. I mean, we spent 20 minutes with Dougie in the last episode, just not doing that much, but it was, I was interested. I predicted when I wrote, because I've been writing a response each week right after the episode, and I don't read anything beforehand. It's just my own thoughts. But having paid attention to what people have been saying up to that point, I thought people were going to really kind of a lot of people were going to sort of turn on part 6 because it just kept kind of doubling down on the Dougie stuff, which seems to be really controversial and divisive. To my surprise, though, positively, including by a lot of people who were more frustrated the previous one. So probably the next one I just won't even predict, because apparently I can't tell. I just know for me personally, I'm really fascinated by this figure and what they're doing with him and how it relates to Cooper. And I think for me, the biggest question going into this new series was how the hell are they going to handle the cliffhanger that they made? Because it had to be the center of the story. And it boggled my mind that people would try to say, oh, no, like that was just a temporary cliffhanger. Like Lynch and Frost aren't even interested in that. They're going to come back and they're going to have the first episode. It's going to be like, oh, Cooper defeated evil Cooper. 20 years ago, and now he's like living in Twin Peaks.
Right.
It's like, are you serious? Like, that's the whole hook of the story. Come on. I think it was wishful thinking for some people because they love,
they just wanted Cooper back in the diner,
yeah,
having
which
some coffee.
I understand. Like, everybody loves that, but you got to tell a story, and this is a hell of a story, So
yeah. Well, I mean, you look at Kyle's role in this new series, and you can see when he got the script why he immediately said yes. I mean, why would you? You wouldn't even. This is the best role he's probably had since Twin Peaks, right? And it's definitely more layered than what. I mean, I thought he was great as Agent Cooper back then, but obviously he's got right now 3 characters he's playing, right? And they're both so different. Dougie is so not doppelganger Bob. You know what I mean? And it's just, and when he got out of that, okay, listen, I'm sure you're the same way. When the doppelganger's introduction happened in the first episode, and you get that slow version of American Woman, didn't you just sit there and you go, here he is, here's the man, here's Bob himself. And when Kyle got out of that car looking like he did with that hair, walked into that shack and sat down just like Bob, and was just like, it was so wonderful. I couldn't believe he was so inhabiting that character, and it's only gotten. I mean, listen, I've said this many times, but it bears saying it again. This show is giving me everything I ever wanted as a Twin Peaks fan, but completely not in the way I ever expected to get it. Right?
Yeah, exactly. That's the tricky thing, is speculating, because okay, Laura Dern was Diane. We all guessed that, but like most of your suspicions aren't gonna totally come true the way you think, and you wouldn't want them to.
Right.
It's way more fun to be surprised.
Well, like for instance, this is one thing that I'm really happy with this new series so far, is they are really exploring so far the Black Lodge in a way that will get you writing 1,000 articles about this new series, and yet they still haven't revealed all that much about the Black Lodge, and yet you feel like they are investigating it seriously. Like, they're not just throwing it out as fan service, like, oh, here's this little part of the Black Lodge for you. I mean, we're spending a lot of time with that one-armed man in that Black Lodge, and I still can't tell you much about it, but we're spending so much time in there now that, I mean, they're treating this story. Look, I always wanted the Cooper doppelganger split story. If you're going to tackle it, you have to tackle it sincerely and seriously. And I feel like they've really done that. And that's the thing that I love the most. And, obviously the Dougie thing I think is adorable and cute and sweet. And everyone's just like, I just want him to wake up and be Cooper. But if he just wakes up and is Cooper, then the whole Dougie thing will be a slog to have to get through on your second and third and fourth viewings of it. He has to slowly become Cooper. He can't just all of a sudden poof just become Cooper, because then it renders Dougie obsolete. So
it's the way I put it is, when will Cooper be back is the Who Killed Laura Palmer of the new season. And like Lynch and Frost were like, oh, we made such a mistake just revealing that and then trying to continue without our central hook. I don't think you can bring without vanquishing, or I think probably more likely kind of bringing back evil Cooper, somehow bringing together. I think this series so far is bearing out John Thorne's idea, which was based on the stuff Lynch said, that
oh man, we're losing him.
Cooper we know versus this evil double that's out there. It seems more like he can't be Cooper again until, well, now they're saying until one of them dies, which is kind of alarming, because if of him, how can one part die? And then, so that means would probably, if evil Cooper dies, we're probably left with this Dougie, because how can he? So I think that's kind of the interesting thing to me is you can't bring back the Cooper everybody wants to see until the story ends the story, essentially, because the story is his return. So necessarily means in 17 Cooper's gonna be still like staring at a statue blowing on his sleeve. But
no, because Showtime
you
has
know,
already
I don't think he's
Showtime has already tipped their
sorry.
Showtime has already tipped their hand because we've seen promos of Cooper in the suit, not Dougie driving a car, looking suspiciously around, that type of thing. So we know that we know he will be back at some point. He just might not be back till episode 15.
Right, and it might not be a case of he's 100% back, but he can do more. I mean, already as Dougie, we see little thing. I'm sort of hesitant to. People are saying, "Oh, he's coming back little by little." I'm actually even hesitant to say that because he's not that different now from the guy we saw get in the car with Jade. Right. But he has little things have happened and stuff. So, I mean, if he's driving, that's a big improvement.
Well, I liked it in.
I think the question is, yeah.
I was just saying the last episode when he was drawing all that stuff on the table or on the pictures or whatever, you know what I mean, on his paperwork. Yeah. It was funny because when the one-armed man said, "Don't die, don't die," and he was and Dougie was just kind of looking around. All of a sudden, we got a wind rising, and it felt like Dale was starting to come a little bit, and then no, he went back suppressed, and the Dougie's music kicked back in. You know, it was just like we got there, just a hint, but nope, got suppressed again.
Well, and there's also, I mean, you know, you can't force the comparison too much because they're totally different questions. But when you think about Who Killed Laura Palmer, the way that kind of ended was not really what anybody expected going in, whether that be, you know, maybe some people thought it was Leland, but who's going to think about the Bob aspect, or like as dark as it was because it was kind of a fun mystery. I feel like the same thing's going to be true with Cooper. Wherever this leads us isn't going to be somewhere that we're, so I don't think it's going to get to the point where episode 18, he's sitting in the diner having pie and he's like, you know, this is damn fine pie, and smiles and gives the thumbs up. Like, I feel it would feel cheap in a way. Like, as much as we love the old Cooper, like, it can't just be like, I don't know. It's hard to explain. Like, we're in the middle, not even the middle, like a third of the way through this big story. And somebody pointed out to me today, because we were talking on Twitter about something that we'll definitely get to before this conversation's over. But he was saying, you know, it's really hard to kind of predict these things ahead of time because look at Mulholland Drive. Who the heck, yeah, it makes sense in retrospect, but who halfway through that movie is going to, like, you know, predict, oh, I think they're going to find this box and then they're going to be different identities. Like, you just absolutely can't see it coming. And I hope the same is true of this. I think my biggest disappointment would be if we get to the end and we don't have that kind of mind-blowing reversal falling into a paradox of like Lost Highway, Mulholland Drive, Inland Empire. Like, I think it may come in a more sort of structured way because of Frost working with him, but I want that same sense of like falling through a different layer of reality. And I think Twin Peaks can handle that. You know?
I think we're already getting that.
We may be. Yeah. Well, okay. Maybe we should just jump into some of the ideas then about that. So one of the things that I was talking about on Twitter last night, and sort of drawing on different people who've said these things, like, for example, podcast Sparkwood and 21, among, I think, many others too, have been speculating that maybe this Dougie thing, his whole world, the whole Las Vegas world, is some sort of dream or fantasy or whatever, and that perhaps it's inside of the doppelganger's head, and that's why one of them has to die for the other one to emerge.
Well, we've been talking about that for a long time on this channel.
Yeah, exactly. And also, I mean, even before I kind of heard that take, I was just from the first 4 episodes, I was thinking, well, maybe they're in an alternate reality. And you hear people running with that with the 2003 thing, which doesn't quite click for me because, among other things, I don't know where that would.
Well, someone told me, because a lot of people were bringing up the BlackBerry thing, and that was something I brought up before too. And then I've had other people who must be on the seedy side of the law contact me and say, no, you don't understand. Criminals today use BlackBerries because they're harder to hack. So, you know.
Yeah.
So thank you for all your knowledge about the drug industry, viewers out there.
I think also for me, it's just like a question of why. And I guess they could make it like maybe Dougie becomes the Bad Cooper, although that doesn't. We already saw the origin of the Bad Cooper, so that wouldn't really make sense. But like, I just don't see like that would just seem like the sort of trickery that people kind of got mad about sometimes with Lost or something, where it's like you're just doing something for the sake
but
of
there
having
is something. Listen, there is something weird going on at Rancho Rosa. There is because you have the Rancho Rosa sign.
And in general,
It's circled. It's circled double R. The fact that the car exploded on one day and the next day the police are cleaning up the explosion mess off the woman's roof the next day.
That might just be an editing thing, though. I don't know, because there's a few things so far that have happened where it's like you get the sense there's like they cut it together, and then they were like, okay, now we're putting it in the episodes. Let's move this one over here. Like the whole thing with the box in Argentina.
Right.
I think they put that at the beginning of episode 5 because it takes place before stuff that happened in the part 4. It takes place before the Dougie's breakfast. And if we get to the point where they edit it together and they don't, rearrange scenes, it's going to be a little jarring because it's going to be like it's night. Dougie wakes up, really bright morning, sun streaming in, and then we cut back to like a night scene of the people at their Rancho Rosa, and then we cut back to like so there's some stuff that's a little iffy.
Well, I was just going to say I've been saying this theory. I think that Lynch just shot a ton of musical performances and extras, and then decided in editing like where like each song would end what episode.
Yeah, for sure. I don't think that was like planned ahead of time. It would be interesting to watch the shots of the ones where they have actors there, like Richard Horn or Shelley, and see if the performers are in any of the shots. I don't think they are. I think it's all shot reverse shot.
Yeah.
Well, so that makes total
before we go
sense.
before you say your next thing, I have to just ask you, what do you think about the color choices? Because like with the giant or 5 question marks, sorry, it's black and white, and then the scene with Gordon Albert's all blue. Are you liking this kind of Dario Argento Suspiria type of thing going on?
The blue thing was a little much for me. It
was a little overkill.
I mean, I could roll with it, but it wasn't my favorite choice. I loved the colors. Another thing I loved about Part 5 was, and this is why it's weird. Yes, it's a big movie, but at the same time, it's like it comes in these weird rhythms where sometimes it feels like Part 5 to me felt like at episode 6 or something of season 1, where it was like you get these little visits with each character and you're moving towards stuff. And then other parts have felt like a big stretch of a movie where you're with one character for like half an hour. So there's a weird rhythm going on. I don't think it's going to make more sense if you watch it all at once. I think it's going to feel kind of, it might even feel even weirder because you're not splitting it up week by week. But anyways, that's a side point. But Part 5 had just the colors popped so beautifully in that. The Becky scene that I mentioned, but also Jacoby's stuff. And I've noticed too, the diner and the sheriff's station just have this glow. It's like they're kind of compensating, I guess, for the fact they're not shooting on film anymore. They're just giving certain locations this really rich, warm, like feeling that's interesting.
Well, I think they're also trying to trick people into not thinking about the original series because, the sheriff's station, the series, because it was a set, they had that little foyer area before you got to Lucy's desk, and now they don't have that. The front door is just open right to her. And of course, in the Double R Diner, none of the booths have the plants and the cookie jar decorations and stuff, where Margaret used to spit her pitch and that type of thing. So, and then Ben Horn's office, it's like it's the exact same way it's set up in the series, but you can tell because it's a real location, it's so condensed and small compared.
Okay, yeah, because did they film anything that was in his that was supposed to be his office for the pilot?
No,
because I feel like
that
was always a set, right?
It was always a set. Maybe the fireplace was, but they never showed the full office.
Yeah, exactly.
So
I almost wonder if they just built a new set for that scene.
Mm-mm.
that was an actual location. So that's interesting. They found a place that looked not that like I know what you mean. Like you could tell it's different, but it's still kind of they were able to arrange it like close enough where it's almost like, oh, we took the secret passageway and turned it into a
right.
a door
Well, you know, I mean, you're talking about how it's hard to predict where it's going to happen, what's going to happen. What I find interesting is it's hard to predict who's going to come up next in the show because every new episode is introducing like 6 or 7 new characters.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, I was just thinking with James. So the funny thing is, he's gone from the last 7 episodes of the first series, right? He rides off in episode 23, and you never see him again.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we see him right away in the premiere of this one, and it's like, well, I guess the second episode. Mm-hmm. And we're like, oh, you know, James is back. He's now part of the story, but we haven't seen him since. If another couple episodes go by without seeing him, it'll be just as long as it was at the end of the first series that we didn't see him.
Well, I mean, funny, yeah.
I
was just asking people in the chat before you came here, and I'm not even sure if we're even going to get back to Matthew Lillard's storyline.
Yeah, I've been wondering. I feel like that'll come back eventually, but they did an interesting thing, sort of 2-part premiere, which is they set up all these different threads, and then they let a lot of them go, which I assume means they're going to come back to them. Mm-hmm. But instead of slowly spreading out, they wanted to start with a scattered approach, which is a very Lynch thing. He did that in Mulholland Drive. He really does it in like Inland Empire. I guess those are really the main 2, because Lost Highway is kind of one focused story. But those 2 films, he really like starts with this like a buckshot, you know, a buckshot of like seeds, and each little seed grows and comes together. Well, it's like use that as your image, but
well, you know, like we were just talking about Ben Horn. We haven't seen him since episode 1.
I haven't seen him since, yeah. And I thought about that, like, why did they introduce that? Here's what I came up with, other than just this is a nice way to say hello to Twin Peaks. And you know, theoretically, well, anyways, so about it. I guess they had to set Jerry up so that they could have a reaction shot to Jacoby. Now that said, they could have put the horn scene in part 5 and done that still.
Right.
But maybe they just like every single thing that we can plant as early as possible.
You know, if they had done that, maybe I wouldn't have not recognized Jerry when they cut to him during the Jacoby scene, because my TV calibration was off, and I thought it was just some homeless man by the river watching it.
Other people did too. I heard somebody else say that. They were like, "Who is that guy? It's just some guy in the woods watching." Like, that was Jerry.
Right.
I think it's like, if anything tells you, it's like the joint, you know.
Yeah.
You see him smoking. That's
but again, you have Jacoby doing this podcast thing, which is kind of funny. And then, but then what shocked me the most was not that; it was the random cutaway to Nadine, like out of nowhere, just Nadine's there.
Yeah,
you know.
And we haven't seen her before or since.
And we haven't.
No,
like people. People are talking about Audrey Horne. People are talking about Audrey Horne. I mean, Big Ed is the one I'm trying to figure out where he's going to show up.
Let's do a list of like the central characters we haven't seen yet. So we haven't seen Big Ed.
Right.
We haven't seen Audrey.
Right.
Who else have we not seen besides those 2?
That is confirmed.
Of like, yeah, that's confirmed. But only of like original series cast members. And not like, you know, we have seen Heidi, but not somebody like Heidi, like actual like ensemble members of the ensemble who came back. Have we seen everybody except Ed and Audrey?
Yeah,
we should do a list of who we have seen. So we've seen James, we've seen Bobby, we've seen Andy and Lucy, we've seen Nadine, we've seen Jacoby, Shelley, Norma, the Horns,
Jacoby,
right? Yeah, so maybe who's left, I guess.
Okay, well, listen. I'm convinced, and I know I shouldn't be, but I'm pretty much convinced that we are going to get a Michael Onkeen cameo in this thing, because they keep bringing him up.
A monkey?
No, Michael Onkeen.
Oh, I thought you said a monkey, like the
Well,
monkey at the end of Fire Walk
well,
with Me.
you never know. You never know. But I don't.
That might be Philip Jeffries.
Well, I've had some people tell me Philip Jeffries is the black box.
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you what, I would rather he be the box or the monkey than like somebody else, like another famous actor, like, hey, I'm stepping in for David Bowie. Like, just don't do that. Don't do that. You know, I'd rather have him be like how they did The Arm. Like if they had tried to hire like another, like, you know, maybe the guy who plays Ike the Spike or something, like, hey, this is the new man from another place, it would have just been cheesy. Like, so if they try and take like just another famous actor and like, this is the new Philip Jeffries, it's like, no, like part of the appeal was he was David Bowie. Like that's what was so cool. So if you're gonna have him in the story, have him be some weird disembodied thing or something. I don't know.
Well, how do you feel about all this like CGI Black Lodge? And I mean, there's a lot of special effects in this show.
I was mostly pretty happy with it. I think because like the same reason a lot of people weren't, because he wasn't trying, like my issue sometimes with CGI is there's all these, you know, they make it look as quote unquote realistic as possible, but it always feels like CGI to me. Even the state of the art stuff I watch, and there's just a feeling about it that's a little bit like lifeless. Now with this, he's not really trying to make it look quote unquote realistic most of the time. It has a very like two-dimensional feel. And to me, it's more like he's just painting digitally. You know,
right.
He's making, like when you make a painting, you're not, you can do photorealistic paintings, but a lot of time it's like animation, you know, people want it to look stylized. So I've been enjoying that aspect of the effects.
But
it's interesting though, with the Lodge, since you asked about that, we got a lot of the Lodge in part 2, I think.
Right.
But then after that, we really haven't seen it that much, other than Mike popping in. But
right,
we
but
got
like aspects of it, like the purple room and that type of thing.
That was great. The purple room was definitely one of my favorite sequences so far. That was like, especially the first time watching it, because you have no idea what's happening. It's like, oh, this is pure Lynch. I love this. You know, even though I'm sure Frost helped write it, but just
I've had some people tell me I don't feel Frost in this series at all. I'm like, what are you kidding? It's all
I feel him a lot.
I feel him a lot too, because if there's any,
especially in the Lodge, especially because the Lodge makes more sense now. Which, you know, I have mixed feelings about that because I love the Irrational Lodge. Fun to see how Frost is kind of integrated, like his sensibility is kind of integrated into that without. I think sometimes when they tried to do that in the original series, it didn't quite work because he would take certain things and it would become a little too literal. Like the little man chewed gum because, you know, or no, not the, you know, the little man chewed gum because and it felt a little, it didn't work forcing it on that paradigm. This is a little different because they're both working on it. Frost is bringing his sensibility into it, I think, of like, well, listen, this is how you get out of the Lodge. Needs to explain that. You know, the most logical, the most expository, and I'm not the first to say this, the most expository character, the most straightforward, you know, this is how the rules of the Lodge work character that's sort of giving that Frostian sort of detail and explanation is a tree/nervous system with a talking brain on top that's an evolution of a little man who grew out of some guy's arm that he chopped off. So that's about the best way I can put the two sensibilities kind of merging together in this.
Well, let me just say this. I think that like Fire Walk with Me, right? Is a film. This is a film that you've been championing for a long time, and I think it's a very, very good film. But I think this new series actually makes Fire Walk with Me even better to those who may not like it, because you can see Frost taking the things that Lynch brought into Fire Walk with Me, right? The owl cave ring and the Garmonbozia and the cream core and all that, and turning it so that it does make sense in this world. Like for instance, like it's a David Lynch visual, but it's a Mark Frost writer's touch to literally have the doppelganger puking up cream corn and oil.
Yeah, I love that.
And it was that, to me, that image was the perfect semblance of the right. You have Frost making it make logical sense in this crazy world, and Lynch portraying it in all its glory.
I think, though, the one thing so far that I was a little bit, and actually it's not as quote unquote bad as I might have suspected or worried about, but the one thing that feels like a little bit of a downgrade to me is when we, well, it depends where it goes, but when we see Dougie with the ring and he goes to the lodge, it's like, okay, well, this kind of takes the most literal aspect of the ring, of it being sort of a transmitter between two worlds, which I always felt was true, but it kind of turns away some of the more interesting, really subtle things that are in Firewalk with Me. Like, for example, how, you only see the ring when the characters are kind of learning something or like the things that I kind of pointed out in the video, which is like, I don't even know if Lynch intended those things, but they're there. And now that you have it kind of brought in and possibly given this more simple, straightforward function, it takes away a little bit for me. But it could be worse in the sense that my least favorite reading of the ring was always like, oh, if you wear the ring, you're going to be Bob's victim. And I guess you could say that happens with Dougie because he was manufactured and now he's replaced, but it doesn't really feel that way. It feels more like this is somehow connecting him to Mike, who he ends up in the lodge next to, and to the lodge, and has something to do. Oh, I know what it was that I kind of didn't like, was that his arm is numb with the ring on it. And you actually, even though everyone makes that association, you never saw that till now. And I was kind of more interested in the idea that your arm kind of goes numb and then the ring actually kind of animates it. Because if you see Teresa when she's wearing the ring, when Laura has the ring, their arms are actually like moving. It's usually like right before or after that it gets numb. But in this, his arm was numb. It had the ring, so it's like, okay, I guess.
But I do like the new touch of like when Dougie's on the ground and he gets blasted back, right? And he goes into the lodge, right?
Yeah.
To me, I feel like,
oh, those visuals were so amazing.
But I feel like that is the what Lynch probably had in mind for what happened to Chet Desmond when he picked up the ring. He probably got blasted back, but he probably didn't have that. He didn't have that thought back then. But now he's like, this is. Don't you think that's probably what happened?
I don't know. We're gonna see with Chet Desmond, I think, because
you think so? You think they're gonna bring him up? I hope so.
Well, no, I mean, I guess that's my question. Is I didn't mean it. We'll see. I meant it'll depend, I think, on if we see Chet and where he is, because that's another thing. Is the only thing that kind of worries me about doing this with this sort of approach where they're bringing back some of the motifs from Firewalk with Me and they're using them for this story is it's twofold, kind of paradoxically. On the one hand, you lose some of the specificity because it was interesting to see how that stuff related specifically to Teresa and Laura, right? And then it expanded from that and it got this bigger meaning, but it kind of started with being this ring on Teresa's finger and you could read it multiple ways. And then, and that's the other thing is sort of the openness of it. So like, for example, with Chet, I'm intrigued by the idea that we don't get to see that in Firewalk with Me, and it leaves it open. It's like, yes, he could have been zapped into the lodge, or maybe what's his face, who Bobby killed. What's his name? Rick Aiello, that guy.
Yeah.
I don't know why I'm having a brain fart on this.
Someone will say it in the chat.
Yeah, Cliff, Deputy Cliff. Okay, Cliff Howard.
Yeah.
He maybe he killed Chet. Maybe Chet Desmond grabbed the ring, looked at it, put it back. But because we stop at that moment,
right,
it remains a mystery. And I kind of love that. Like, I would love to see him again in some capacity, but in one that leaves the mystery open. So I think and I guess when you asked me before the new series began, I don't think I really had an answer on what would worry me or what I didn't want to see. But I think in retrospect, I'd be a little worried that the new series takes away some of the openness and ambiguity that allows you to kind of imagine your own kind of reading of things, both in the series and Firewalk with Me. I hope that they won't totally do that. So it's like, well, now you go back and you watch Firewalk and you're like, oh, Judy was Josie's sister. Right. Which I don't think they're gonna do because Josie's not even in it.
I just want to know what was up with that Laura Palmer floating up in the sky and screaming and then just flying through the air through the Black Lodge.
Well, apparently episode 10 might have something to say about that.
Yeah,
huh? So that's an interesting episode.
Yeah, because that reminded me a lot.
Or is that 11? 10 or 11?
Oh my goodness. Let's see.
I think it's 11.
No,
actually.
It's 10. Well, 10 is Laura is the one, and part 11 is There's Fire Where You Are Going.
Ooh, both great titles. Yeah.
But it's like,
man, I'm really excited for those two, and I'm actually going to be in California for a cousin's wedding. The Laura is the one episode, so I'm hoping that Sunday, it's after the wedding. I'm hoping nothing's going on, that I can watch that live, because that's one of I'm really excited to see what that title means. Because
part 9, is called This Is the Chair. Again, it reminds me of Mulholland Drive. This is the girl. And I had someone write me saying that they feel like it's going to refer to the Philip Jeffries chair that we see at the when he disappears and they show that shot of the chair. It's either that or it's going to be Laura's chair in this classroom. I don't know. There's a lot of chairs being shown. But obviously,
that's actually a good question. I guess it's kind of fruitless to guess, but my automatic go-to is the chair in the lodge in the Red Room. That's the obvious thing.
Do you think?
Yeah. What chairs?
Do you think that this Ike the Spike guy? Here's I'll tell you something that worries me. I worry that he's gonna have to either kill Naomi Watts and Sonny Jim, or he's gonna kill. Terrible. Or he's going to kill Dougie Cooper, and then his spirit's going to be in the lodge with the giant in the black and white room, and then he's going to have to get out. Because no matter what, unless Rancho Rosa is connected to the real world, he's going to have to pass through again, right? And get out the correct way through Glastonbury Grove.
Okay, so that's the question then. Let's address that directly, because what are the possibilities here? One is there are multiple universes. None of them are more real than the others. They just all kind of coexist. And Dougie's in one, and Bad Cooper's in another. Another possibility is the Dougie universe isn't real. It's manufactured just like Dougie was. And it's sort of this false world created by the doppelganger, either within his own consciousness or in another realm or whatever. We probably wouldn't get a straightforward answer on that. It would just be kind of understood that it's not as real. And evidence for that is sort of Mike saying, wake up, or don't die, or even the fact that he can see Mike the way he does in this world. It feels like he's looking through a veil at times, right? Like the veil is getting thinner and he's seeing where he really is, which is maybe inside the Red Room somehow. Maybe he's up in the corner of the Red Room.
Another thing about Rancho Rosa is the fact that Dougie lives on Lancelot Court near Merlin's Market by the Guinevere Street or whatever park or whatever it is. And so you have this King Arthur, references again that only came up in the last episode for 3 seconds, but now it's like everywhere in this Dougie world,
Well, another thing, and this is specifically what I was talking about last night, is what if the Vegas world coexists with the Twin Peaks world, but both of those don't coexist with the Bad Cooper, FBI, New York, other stuff. And there are obviously a few little links between them. One is the Philip Jeff or Argentina, the little box. What's her name from the Vegas storyline? No, she's definitely from the Vegas.
But she could have called that box 10 years previous. I mean, this could not.
Well, that's a different timeline question, but if they're different worlds, totally,
right?
Then the question is, but I think the doppelganger, I think, can communicate between worlds. I think that's kind of what he's doing when he sets up that little weird radio thing, and you talk to Garland Briggs. I'm going to be with Bob again. Is this Philip Jeffries? All of that stuff. Okay. I think he has the ability to kind of.
Well, I was just going to pause you right there. What do you? Okay, you talking about the case. what about that theory that Debbie on this channel kind of came up with that kind of spread wildfire of when Bob took Earl's soul, that obviously he has Earl's memories, and so therefore that he raided.
I heard about that secondhand.
He raided, kind of went back to Earl's cabin, got the stuff, because when he throws down that computer thing and breaks it open, and it's very Wyndham Earl-esque. He's wanting the coordinates to things, which is what Earl wanted from Major Briggs. There's lots of little things in there. Do you think are they going to bring Wyndham Earl back into this, you think?
I've heard a few people hope that. I don't think so. I think Wyndham Earl's done, but it is interesting that the doppelganger in some ways is kind of what you would kind of, some people, maybe probably me, would wish Wyndham Earl had kind of been, like, less silly and more this just kind of cold mastermind who can just like mind fuck you, so I don't think Wyndham Earl is going to come back into it personally, but I think we're seeing kind of an interesting take on his legacy in a way.
Yeah. Do you think Audrey is this mysterious billionaire with the box, or
Not anymore. I mean, it was an interesting idea when I first heard it after maybe 2 or 3, I guess the first 4 episodes. Richard Horne to me makes me think no. I think Richard's your son. I think it's going to feel kind of a letdown if he's not, because it's the same thing of like wanting Cooper to be back soon. It's like, we want that, but is that really good for the narrative? Like, this punk, horrible person being the son of like one of the, most compelling characters from the first season is so much more interesting than him being Jerry's punk son.
But did he get disowned then from the Horne family because his truck is like, that is a horrible cheap thing, he's driving around. But I love the theory. I know I'm wrong. I know this is never going to happen, but I have to say it to Joel just because I love this theory so much, that Richard Horne is the product of Audrey and the doppelganger because they hooked up, and that Linda will be the product of Cooper and Annie because they hooked up. Two birds with one.
I never heard that second.
Yeah,
one. 2 birds with one stone.
Yeah.
I kind of like that, to be honest.
I know. I would love it. I would love it. It's never going to happen, but I would love it.
Probably too neat. Probably too neat, but I mean, it's in our house now. All of that. Yeah, I never really thought about that with Linda.
Because if Linda,
that would be really great, in my opinion. I mean, maybe it's a little too neat,
but it would be a fascinating place. It would be a fascinating place to go. And obviously, Linda. Some people are saying maybe number 9. This is the chair. Maybe that has to do with the chair that.
Good call. Yeah, good call. I like that. Okay, I'm gonna go on that theory.
Because didn't she need like some sort of electric chair or something like that?
Yes, she needed a wheelchair. She's a veteran, I believe.
Right. Oh,
they imply that. They imply she's
which, by the way, I have to just bring this up. I'm sorry, I don't know who says to me, but they said the last episode was a very politically charged episode, which again brings in Mark Frost. The fact that we had the stuff about the veterans, the son that killed himself, the fact that Janie E says they're 99 percenters. There was a lot of politics brought into this thing. And obviously that's the Mark Frost touch.
Yeah, it would seem so. It was interesting. I heard one person say, or you can see Lynch, the Bernie supporter, coming out here too, because of and he doesn't make political statements that often, so it's sort of hard to see. But it is interesting that that was his. I think he tweeted as his only political tweet of 2016 was all caps, "Yay Bernie." But so that's interesting.
But if Audrey owns the box,
and the Jacoby thing too, I think is probably Frost, mostly.
I mean, if Audrey is the billionaire running the box thing, which I don't really believe, then you're gonna have to probably bring in John Justice Wheeler because he's got money too, and I don't really think that they're probably gonna do that. But I do think
I think he's done.
but I do think the box will be owned or run by this mysterious billionaire, I think it will be somebody we know. I don't think it will be a new character.
Yeah, that's plausible, I think. I think, yeah, with Audrey, I'm wondering now, you said was Horn disowned. Well, I was gonna say maybe she just like left the after they retconned it in Secret History, maybe she like left the family business and refuses. But I feel like wouldn't they still probably try and help Richard if he's around? I don't know. It is a good question. Like, why is Richard? What is Richard's deal? What's his deal?
And Richard acts like he's new to this area, and like he's like, oh yeah, you know these small towns. The sheriff's 90 years old. He's not paying attention. Blah blah blah. But he acts like he doesn't even know this area. Is he not aware that his family like runs the Great Northern here?
Yeah, I mean, I took it to be I took it to be more just him like hating on the area because he's kind of from, like, oh, I hate this provincial little town that I'm stuck in type of thing. But okay, now I'm thinking of all these other things. I don't think it's going to get super, like, people were even I think ragging on me a little bit, the fact that I was even willing to say maybe these are two different worlds going on with the two different Coopers, Mm-hmm. So I think that's plausible. That's kind of on the edge of plausibility. I don't think we're going to get as complicated as people way back in the first season. I looked on alt.tv, those forums. One person predicted that we were going to find out that we were flipping back and forth between scenes from different universes, one in which like Leo killed Laura and one in which he doesn't. So they were like, Leo Prime does this and this. Like, it was ridiculous. But so now I'm wondering, well, what if we're switching between a world where Richard Horn is, maybe the Horn family has declined, and then another one where they haven't. That would be too much for me.
I think there's something. I think there's something going on in Twin Peaks too, considering that there's a lot of people that are still like stuck in limbo. Heidi, Shelley, and Norma work in the diner.
But I think whatever's happening in Twin Peaks is all of a piece. Mm. It may be different from what's happening elsewhere, but I so just to basically poo-poo on my own theory that I just threw out. I think everything we see in Twin Peaks is part of the same world. Everything we see in Vegas is part of the same world. Possibly everything we see in Twin Peaks and Vegas are part of the same world, but that might be separate from the other stuff and connected tenuously through these sort of otherworldly links, like calling the little box, like the ring being in, I guess, what we're all assuming is Major Briggs's body. So like, I think there are these figures who can kind of travel between the worlds or have some kind of path between them. But
and then of course the whole thing about Dougie, Janie E, and Sonny Jim. Somebody broke down the anagrams of them. Yeah,
that's crazy.
Right?
That's crazy, but it does work.
Yeah.
I wonder if it's. I feel like that has to be a coincidence. Well, but it's an awesome. Awesome coincidence.
I don't think it's a coincidence because they just keep saying Sonny Jim. You go up there and say goodnight to Sonny Jim, Janie E, Doug E. Yeah, they're really like.
They're such absurd names.
Yeah.
That could be a Frost thing for sure.
Oh, it definitely is.
That would be. I mean, somebody pointed out that those books on the shelf in the Secret History spell out, like, when you do the little code, it's like fear the double if you just take the first letters of each thing. So he loves little puzzles.
And it's also like when you're in Ruth's apartment in episode 1, on her nightstand it says Indian heritage on the book.
Okay, so let's get to that though. So the real Indian heritage thing. How I want to. So we know, and you sent me the picture, and we could kind of guess it anyways.
Well, people don't know what you're talking about. Why don't you tell people like what?
Yeah, no, it's so. I think it has. What Hawk discovered in the bathroom stall door, it's got to be related to what Annie said to Laura in
because somebody I don't know how you did it, but somehow you froze it so perfectly and were able to zoom in where it says something about Annie. Yeah. And it's in Laura's handwriting. Someone did a comparison to.
Oh, okay. Good. Okay. Because I was thinking, like, that's a sort of an odd thing to write for her to write. Oh, Annie.
But it wasn't
You know.
ripped. Okay, because she says write it in your diary and fire walk with me. This is
So
after
that's what I wanted. Yeah.
yeah,
Okay,
she
good.
this is after she gave it to Harold Smith. But those
This
pages
is
that
what I wanted to discuss.
but this what Hawk is holding is not ripped out of the diary. It's almost like she wrote it on like
On a notepad.
a notepad. Yeah.
So the questions are: A, is this consistent with what we saw? Will it be consistent with what we saw in Firewalk with Me, which is she already had given her diary to Harold, and it couldn't be something Leland ripped out because, you know, that was from her original secret diary.
Let me just pause you.
So
Someone's asking what are the anagrams for Dougie, Janie E, and Sonny Jim.
Oh yeah, yeah.
It was
that. I can't remember the exact.
Josie, Judy, and my Annie gone.
My Annie.
My
okay.
Annie.
That's got to be coincidence. I can't. It's too. It's. I mean, it's a wild one, but yeah.
Well, I don't know. My Annie gone. That's pretty. And Jody and Josie and Judy. Come on. That's way too much of a coincidence to not be.
Yeah, it is. That is pretty wild. Yeah, I don't know what to say about that yet.
So go ahead. Go ahead. You were talking about the diary and Firewalk with Me.
Yeah, so the fact that it's apparently from a different, like a notepad or something, that's good, because I don't really want them to forget and have this weird thing where it's like, well, she wrote it in her diary and Leland ripped it out and brought it to the train car, because it's like what Frost did sometimes in Secret History, where it's like, oh, Robert Jacobi was born in 1934 and in 1920 and 1941, and he was in World War II, but then he wasn't. Like, I don't like that screwy timeline stuff. Like, so I'm hoping that they keep it consistent with that, as anal as that is. But then I guess the other question is, what possible plausible way could it get there? So the only thing I can think is either Laura or Leland had it with them, left it, you know, with other diary pages at the crime scene. The one-armed man took it that night while he was at the train car, and then put it there when he became Mike again, when he forgot to inject his drugs.
They didn't notice for 25 plus years that the door was kind of open a little bit at the top.
That part doesn't bother me. What bothers me is why put that in there? It's so random, and I'm looking forward to the explanation. But I can't imagine what it would be. The closest I can come is that idea that, like, Mike being Mike and not able to tell anybody something directly, although apparently now he can, sort of. Yeah. But, you know, that was his thing on the show, and in the film was like he sort of spoke like the little man in code, kind of. And so his thing, so maybe he's, you know, for them to find it. That's a bit of a stretch. Nothing else even comes close to making sense for me. Why would Leland, when he was there, put it in there? Why would Laura put it in there? Just,
she was never in the sheriff's station.
Not that we saw. So for that to work, she would have to go to the sheriff's station over the next 4 or 5 days between the dream and when she dies. And then she'd have to go to the bathroom and say, I'm going to put it here for safekeeping.
But in the men's room. It's in
the men's bathroom too, yeah. So it has to do, I'm sure it has to do with Philip Gerard being in there.
Right.
That's the only thing.
Well, and also because we got that shot of him in season 2 of the camera going over the stall and he's in there. So
that's what I mean. Yeah. That's the only time that he's the only character that I think we saw in the bathroom. And somebody said, I don't know how I haven't verified this. They said it's the same stall that he was in.
I believe it is.
They purposely shot it in like the third stall or whatever. So
somebody's Mana Lit Cream writes, what if Bobby hid the pages? But Bobby would know about, if he read it and said Cooper's in the lodge, he'd be like, Dad, what does this mean?
Yeah, nothing else makes sense to me other than the one-armed man. And even that, I'm hoping, I mean, you know, I guess it would just be, I mean, that's about halfway there for me, but I need a little more. I need something a little more just to make it click and kind of go, aha, that's why.
Okay, now you are definitely a analytical person, and if you haven't read his blog, Lost of the Movies, you have to get going on that. So, but I have to ask you, because there is sort of a Lynch versus Frost thing here, and Lynch has even come out and said something about this. But
about in the process of making it, or
no, about this aspect.
Oh, okay.
That the Tamara Preston we read about in Secret History of Twin Peaks is not the Tammy that David Lynch portrays in the new series.
What did Lynch say about
they
that?
asked him about Tamara Preston and Mark.
About
yeah, and he said that's Mark's version of Tamara Preston.
Wait, he said Tamara Preston? Not, I heard him say that about the book in general. But did he say that specifically about that
I believe
character?
he did. Yeah, because he said something about like mine's Tammy, his is Tamara. Yeah.
Really? Where was this?
It's in one of those interviews that he's recently been doing.
Tammy Tamara.
And I just thought that was absolutely hilarious that like he's like
that's kind of wild.
Because it's true. I mean, I don't think the Christabel's performance, I've said many times, I think Christabel is playing Christabel playing Tamara Preston, not what we saw, of in Mark Frost's book. So
yeah, that's an odd thing, and I mean, Frost must have known that he must have known what she was like in the series. So it's interesting he kind of chose to write her the way he did, because
now Charles says, we haven't seen enough of Tammy to know her true character. She picked up on the backward prints. I'm talking about just the way she's like
persona,
just the way she conducts herself, the way she kind of like yells at Gordon, you told me to. Like, doesn't seem like the same.
Actually, that part I could buy, because she seems kind of like she's got this sort of plucky thing in the Secret History where she's like, I could see that character who wrote all those annotations as being kind of frustrated at being left out of something. What's different to me is just the whole sultry demeanor and the kind of the walk and all that. Like, that to me was just nothing like what I pictured the character. When I read the book, I pictured like kind of Betty from Mulholland Drive as an FBI agent.
That's really interesting that you say that, because
I think I saw her as Naomi Watts. I thought Naomi Watts was,
and I pictured her as Laura Elena Haring as yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
So it's interesting. We both chose Mulholland Drive girls.
Totally different Mulholland Drive characters. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I could see her as sort of this intrepid.
Because people because people really thought it was going to be Amy Shields playing this character.
So far Amy Shields has shown up in one episode without any lines in the middle of a chorus,
and not only that, but there's like 65 articles about her on Google about her being in the new Twin Peaks. It's like
what's going on with that? I don't know.
Either you have the greatest like agent of all time, or you are coming back in a big way in this new series.
And she showed up with Mark Frost to do a reading from The Secret History,
right,
in LA, I think. And I think she read Tammy Preston.
Yeah.
So maybe she's just got like a look and like a charisma that people are like, she's going to be big. So even though she plays basically an extra in Twin Peaks, they're all, no, I don't think so. I think she'll come back. But it's weird, like it wasn't like she was, like not only did she have no lines, not only was she only in one scene, she was literally with two other people who had the exact same role. So like I think it was Mandy, Sandy, and Candy, and she was Candy or Sandy.
But one thing that's been said on this podcast a few times is it's really interesting how you have to read the end credits of this show to get everything, because
I know, and I never can. I can't do it. When it gets to that end, I'm just like processing, and they're going by kind of fast. Right. So then I go online, I write my thing. I have no idea that the guy is Richard Horn, or that what was the other thing they gave away in the credits? Becky. Becky was married to Steven, supposedly.
Right. There was that. There's the other thing that I find interesting is that, Becky has a last name. Other characters have a last name. Shelley is still Shelley. Shelley is just Shelley.
Also, Cheryl Lee's always in the credits, maybe because she's in the opening because they use her photo.
That's it.
I'm guessing.
Yeah.
But they didn't do that in the old series when they used her credit, her photo under the end credits. They never put her in there, so that's kind of interesting.
I think they're following film rules instead of TV rules, because it says at the end this film was made and with the benefit of this that it doesn't. They've never really referred
they're not
as a TV show. So,
but they're not mentioning people who aren't otherwise in that part, are they?
No, but they're just kind of naming.
Oh, like if there are photos in it or something,
Right.
They have to list them. They didn't on TV. I see what you're saying.
Right.
So, what was I gonna say? I can't remember.
Okay.
So yeah.
So what about this other theory that's been going around that honestly, just when I heard it, it made me just clench up as a Twin Peaks fan. But I know a lot of you out there actually really like this idea, and that is if Dougie was a manufactured person. The other idea was that Annie was a manufactured person from the lodge but then this isn't Buffy season 5. Okay, Norma's not going to all of a sudden have a sister that she never knew, and all of a sudden she's this suicidal ex-nun shows up in a town as a product of the Black Lodge.
Yeah.
I don't know. Do you buy that they're going to retcon Annie as being some sort of?
I don't think we're going to find out a lot about Annie in this show. I was worried because of what Frost tweeted out. Somebody asked him what's up with Annie, and he said, "Wait for my book," and everyone was like, what? So it's not going to be on the show.
But Kyle said you will learn about what happened to Annie.
Right, and now that we know for a fact she's in this. Not she's in it as Heather Graham, but we know Annie is mentioned in this series because the diary page or whatever, the note says, "Oh, Annie."
Mm-hmm.
So that's settled now. We know, so that's good. Beyond that, I don't know that we're going to hear or see a lot about her, and I'm still not sure why that is exactly. Mm-hmm. But that's kind of my suspicion.
So then,
I'll tell you one thing. It would be great if in one episode, maybe even one scene in the lodge or some strange space like they did with the Purple Room, they just drop all the characters who weren't on the cast list. Isaac, Chen,
whoever.
Who else? Heather Graham, yeah, obviously. Those are the big obvious ones. Bowie pops in. I mean, they wouldn't do that because that would be like they would have had to shoot that knowing he was dying. Like, hey, we're gonna put you in here as a surprise. Won't that be fun? Like,
well, they knew.
That's another reason. That's another reason I can't quite believe that Bowie is gonna make a surprise appearance, because it's almost like in bad taste. Like, why would you? Like, the guy was dying of cancer.
So
like, why would he be like?
So was Catherine E. Coulson.
She was, but they told us she was in it when they came out with the cast list. And that. So that was like So first of all, that was like, okay. So they didn't try to hide from us that she was going to be in it, whereas they would be doing that with Bowie. B, I mean, that was like. Bowie loved being in Firewalk with me, but I don't think Twin Peaks was the first thing on his mind in his last few months. With Catherine Coulson, I think it honestly was. Even as she was dying, that friendship with Lynch and that part meant so much to her that clearly that was something both of them wanted to do before she passed away. I find that harder to believe with Bowie. It's just... I don't think that would have been the first thing on his mind when he was battling cancer. So I don't think we're going to see Bowie. I just hope they don't recast him. I don't think they will.
I have a couple quick questions for you. One is, when Cooper and Laura are in the Black Lodge, why do you think she says the things again like, "My arm's been back"? I mean, we've already like settled this in the first series. I mean, why are we? I mean, it seemed like a combination of like new stuff and also old stuff. Is it future? Is it past? Where like, is it the dream? Is it something new? What is she whispering in his ear that makes him go, huh, 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 before she flies off screaming?
Good question.
What
is all that? I mean, what's really the question is, what's the deal with Laura? Like, what's her part in this?
Mm-hmm.
The picture opens up each episode, and we know that for Lynch, Laura has always been the center of Twin Peaks. So even though this is
the one.
Right, exactly. And so when I saw that, it was like, ooh, That's they put that right, and that's the only line so far that has been used before, because that was the Log Lady's line in the intro to the pilot. I put that as part 4 of my video series because that's such like an on the nose expression of Lynch's feelings. Lara is the one. So she has to play some part in this for it to be Twin Peaks for him. And that's set up pretty well in the second part. We just don't know. So I have some thoughts on this. I think we should get into something. Hang
on. I just got to throw this out there.
Yeah, go ahead.
One more thing, then we'll go back.
I'm going to go off on a tangent for a second. Yeah.
Cause in the chat says, can you guys just mention the theory that's on Reddit about the arm manifesting itself as the number 6 on the telephone pole? Because the telephone pole is not the same telephone pole that we see in Fire Walk With Me, but the 6 and the numbers on it are the same. Are the same that's on the pole at the scene of the car accident. So we do know that Carl Rod has moved the trailer park to Twin Peaks. This isn't. Yeah. There's people out there telling me that Deer Meadow is right next door to Twin Peaks. No. It's not. It's the new Fat Trout trailer park. And they even go so far to have him sipping from a double R cup to show us that we aren't hanging out in Deer Meadow. So I don't know anything about that telephone pole, but I do know that it confused a lot of viewers, casual viewers, especially that we're like, well, wait a minute here. I thought this and that.
There's 2 relationships to that pole. The first is, excuse me, in Fire Walk With Me, we hear the little man's whoop when we pan down or tilt down the pole and go to the 6. So he's associated with the pole in that. Actually, maybe 3 things. So the second thing is just in general with the spirit world. It's made of wood. It connects to electricity. It's the perfect conduit between spirit world and our world. And the third thing is when the little kid's spirit thing floats up, it disperses amongst the electric wires.
It goes past.
It doesn't quite though. Like if you look at it, it gets a little hollower when it passes one, and then there's like a top wire that it's not like directly on it, but it's like kind of overlaid with it, like maybe it's right behind it or something. And at that point, it kind of disappears. So there's like a couple.
That's a better idea than what some people have told me, which is that's a cream corn flying up into the heavens. And
I mean, I think it kind of is though. That's what I was gonna say. I think it's creamed. It's the Garmin Bosia going up into the being transmuted into electric energy and being taken, according to this theory, if those are telephone or electric wires or whatever, being taken to that pole that the arm is associated with. So there is some kind of thing going on there. Yeah. So I think that makes sense.
And someone made a video the other day of that car accident. You know how they'd made that. There was a video that went around that showed Sam and Tracy and Coop and the blind Asian woman, right? They did the parallel.
Yeah, I haven't watched it yet. I'm intrigued by that.
Well, I've heard about somebody made a parallel video of I think it's on Twin Peaks Dossier channel of the car accident of the little boy parallel with the same scene in Fire Walk With Me of the one-armed man yelling at Laura and her dad while the old man is crossing same intersection. And just like the other one, it's edited almost the same in terms of
that's an interesting point. So I'd heard that they did that with the Purple Room / Tracy and Sam thing.
Right.
I'm a little skeptical going in. I haven't watched it yet just because it doesn't seem to edit something like that. You're sort of binding yourself. You're not allowing yourself to sort of respond to the rhythm of the material. You're saying it has to fit this sort of preconceived notion. And I don't like you can pull that type of thing off, but you really have to make sure it works on both levels. And I don't see him prioritizing that. It's a little hard for me to believe. I can believe there's a similar idea at work and that it executes itself, but to sort of time it down to the thing where assuming they're in Avid or whatever and they're like got one screen, okay, well we got to cut here because we cut there before.
Right. No, but
it's a little too on the nose.
But
Lynch, but I love the general idea.
But the Sam and Tracy scene with the Cooper scene, that was definitely a Brian De Palma editing style, because it's like he's in the box and then he gets pulled back in the box right when they walk in. It's like perfect timing with everything. And then when
I'll have to check it out.
And then when the blind lady or starts going like this, that's when they start getting killed and stuff like this. It's just, it matches up way too well. And but Dwayne Dunham is one hell of an editor. He's really good.
Yeah, he is, and that's why it's like it's hard for me, because an editor is going to think about rhythm. I think, but more than anything else, you want that, especially like a sequence like the Purple Room scene where it's almost like a piece of music,
Right.
So it's a little. I have a little trouble seeing them kind of almost making it like a math equation. Like now we got to have this duration shot, now that one, so that it matches this other thing.
But they are, but in terms of, but Cooper, the common denominator was that Cooper was in that room. He was in the box.
No, I can definitely see there being a general connection. I don't know. I probably shouldn't talk about because I haven't actually watched the video yet.
I think you'll like it.
That's kind of my. No, I'm fascinated by it, and I love that type of thing. Put it this way, I love making the split screen kind of comparisons and making two things kind of sync up. But it's just hard. It's hard for me to imagine them editing it in a way where they have to cut at a certain point, not because of the rhythm of the scene or the narrative or the performance, but because it has to match something that hardly anyone's even gonna notice. Like that seems to be compromising your aesthetic a little too much for like almost a puzzle kind of point.
But if it's just a set piece, it's not a whole film.
Yeah, but like that I don't know, like that set piece has to function in a certain way. I don't know. We'll come back to the next time I'm on. We'll come back to this point because we'll probably know more.
Yeah.
And I'll also
watch. But what do you think the point of killing that little kid was? I mean, besides just having an empathetic moment with Carl Rod and the lead.
Yeah, I think it was kind of. I mean, we'll see more. I'm sure it'll play into the plot more. I think they'll follow up with that in the next episode. I think that'll be another example of something where.
Well, it is called "There's a Body," all right.
We didn't end at nighttime, did we? In this one?
No, we just cut to another band.
Cut to the Roadhouse. Yeah.
Oh, wait, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Can you say that again? We cut to where?
We didn't cut to nighttime, right?
No. I'm saying, where were they playing again?
Oh, to the Roadhouse.
Thank you. All right, continue your thought.
Wait, why was that?
Because I've been getting shit all week because I keep calling it the Roadhouse and telling people it's not
the. Supposed to call it the Bang Bang Bar.
Yeah,
or something?
According to every article online. And I've had so many people tell me that I'm going to scare away new viewers by just saying it's the Roadhouse and not allowing them to call it the Bang Bang Bar.
What's wrong with the Roadhouse?
Because it's the Bang Bang Bar now, according to everybody else. So
Oh.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so I think we'll come back to that scene of the crime in the next episode, and it'll just be a few minutes later type of thing. I think they're very roughly sticking to the one day at a time thing, but they're being a little loose with it. So I think we'll see. I guess this is a little spoilery because I knew about the car accident.
So did I.
Yeah, I think most people did, and
there was another. Really sad. It's really sad.
Yeah, I have to say, I think it took away a little bit of it.
The moment you saw
on the first viewing.
Yeah, the moment you saw the mom and the little boy, I was like, oh, it's gonna be that scene.
And I was waiting for it. I thought the kid blowing up. Oh my God, is they gonna blow up the kid? Yeah. When he pulls the bomb? When Sonny Jim gonna get run over? Mm-hmm. When the lady said she was a teacher, oh my God, is her whole school bus gonna get slammed? So it's like I kept waiting for it. So that brings me to another 2 points. First of all, another thing about that. So I guess, can we give a warning now?
I was just going to say that I was told about the kids getting hit that the implication was that was how the series was going to begin.
Oh, yeah, really?
And I was like, really? That's how they're going to begin this thing? Okay. But you were convinced that that it was going to like begin with like some massive brutal killing of a prostitute for 20 minutes.
No, that wasn't me. But you told me about that.
Oh, no, you were the one who told me about that.
No, you told me on the previous episode. I hadn't heard that. You said that was a rumor that you had heard, and I was.
And then you.
Yeah, we went into our post.
Oh yeah.
Everybody tune out now if you don't want to hear. And then you told me about it. Yeah, but
I'm glad that didn't happen.
But so. I think that would have been that. That was a good scene, but opening was I don't know. So maybe we should do that again, though, because there's a couple things I want to talk about.
Let's do it.
That involve the on-set.
Okay.
Thing
all right.
Hang on.
Seeing. Okay, I don't know if what Joel is going to talk about is true or not, so just be aware or leave the podcast now. Thanks. Go ahead, Joel.
So the first thing's really minor. It was that supposedly Deputy Bobby shows up at the crime scene of the kid. Where the kid got run over.
Okay.
So I'm thinking we're going to see more of that little crime scene next episode. And I would think that anyways. But the other thing is the big thing, which I think we got the elephant in the room.
Are you talking about
TMZ and everything else? You guys ran a video on it.
We've talked about it numerous times. People aren't shocked about that one.
No. So that's obviously Cooper leading Laura, or somebody who looks like Cooper leading somebody who looks like Laura to her parents' house.
She could be another manufactured thing.
Right. So one of the things that I remember hearing about that was this really intrigues me, and this puts me even further into thinking about, are we dealing with two different worlds here? And maybe a different Twin Peaks in each world, where different things have happened and stuff and one is more real maybe than the other. Maybe they're both equally real, but have different significance. I remember reading that they dressed the set two totally different ways. They had very nicely trimmed lawn and everything, and they shot some stuff with that, and then they covered it with detritus and kind of the bushes weren't cut and all of that, and they shot it like that.
Well, that makes sense because the way Sarah, she can't take care of the house, right?
Right, but then the question is, and also supposedly when Cooper and Laura knock on the door, people said that the residents of the house opened it, the people who actually live there played the part of opening it, and there was a sense that that was what they filmed, was them opening it. And that was the first thought actually that came in my head when I heard the Giants say Richard and Linda. I thought, maybe they're the people who live in the Palmer house. Now we've got a different Richard and different Linda, so less likely. But so it makes me wonder: are they going to go to the Palmer house and somebody else lives there? I'm just going to throw this out there. This is sort of what I was sort of dancing around last night, and I hope I'm wrong.
Didn't they have other the people that own the house? They played. Didn't they play the people who opened the door?
That's what I'm saying. Right. Yeah, but then I think they might have also shot something with Sarah there as well. And they shot the lawn looking two different ways. So they shot two scenes that take place at different times.
Right. But don't forget about the phantasm little guy.
Yeah,
but awesome. I will just say this though. It can't be that I'm
100% with you.
I'm saying important in quotes of a scene to be shot in front of an entire neighborhood of people with onlookers and people recording everything. It can't be it can't be the ending of Cooper taking Laura home.
It frustrates me so much because I can't wrap my head around it, but I cannot accept. I refuse to accept that Lynch and Frost are so childlike that they would not understand that shooting it that way would get out there. I can't accept that. No, period. It annoys me too much to even have to consider that possibility.
These two
These two people who people were trying to say, oh well, they haven't shot something in a while. They don't no, come on. Like they've made a point of keeping everything under wraps. And they did a damn good job of hardly letting anything out.
Right.
I cannot believe they would allow this to be seen by a crowd. And I'm sorry, okay, maybe you had to get permits, blah blah blah. They could have gone at another time secretively when nobody expected them to be there, and just on the fly. Shot something, had people staged to keep it. Like, there's so many things you could do.
And they could have put blockades around. They could have put blockades around.
Yeah, it's
but here's my theory, Joel. This is my theory. Ready for this?
Yeah.
I don't think this scene is in the show. I think
that's possible. I think that would be pretty funny.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think it was specifically shot so that they could test the waters to see how far it would go in the social media age and get the word out. Twin Peaks is being done. Who do you have? You have
maybe have fun with it.
Yeah, you have Kyle and Cheryl Lee. Really?
Yeah.
I won't be surprised if it's all fake and staged.
But I won't be. I would be a little surprised, but not shocked. I wouldn't be shocked. But I think if this is in the show, it means either we're looking at two scenes of the Palmer house that take place like years apart, which is already a little bit. That's already something.
Mm-hmm.
Or in different realities, different worlds, So one idea to throw out there is, does the Cooper Dougie in Vegas run into, Laura's version of Dougie? not like incapacitated, but her under a different name, seemingly a different person. And do they, just like he sees, Sycamore, case files, coffee, these little triggers, is that a big trigger for him? And do they somehow together go back to Twin Peaks and see other people living there and experience a totally different Twin Peaks than the one we've been watching for however many episodes? Or do they go and see the Twin Peaks we've been watching, but find out that Twin Peaks is not a real, or not the Twin Peaks they want to be?
I want Cheryl Lee to be like an intelligent character. I don't want her to to be like a Dougie.
I'm not saying you got two Dougies communicating with each other. Although I have to say that would be part of me would just laugh hysterically.
Here's my question. Here's my what do you think is going to happen question. Is Lynch going to kill Cheryl Lee again in this series?
Oh God, I hope not. No, that's just too. That's too much. Like each death, Maddie served a purpose. Going back and showing Laura's life and death served a purpose. This would just feel gratuitous. Like I can't. I can't think of any circumstance, and I can think of things they would do, like, Cooper's gonna kill her, and that's like a big twist on the situation or whatever. But I just can't go there. I think, to me, she had the arc she had in Firewalk with me, and something different needs to be done with her at this point. I think she's probably going to be more of a guide for Cooper, but I think maybe he can also help her. Whoever her character is in this, I think is going to be somewhat different from Laura. Either it's going to be, what if Laura survived and lived and grew up and all of that,
right? Or
it's going to be, this is another person who somehow is a doppelganger, contains Laura's essence, just like Dougie with Cooper, et cetera, et cetera. But I think whoever that character is going to have the Laura baggage and have to kind of deal with that somehow.
Okay, let me throw out another thing to you. What about this theory? The theory that when you see the picture in Fire Walk with Me and Laura turns and she sees herself in the painting, right? That when she tells James, which is the metaphorically, your Laura has disappeared. Like it's a very sweet, nice thing to let him know that the woman that he so innocently idolizes is not the dark soul that Laura portrays herself to be.
Right.
Is it possible they could spin it and make it that's Laura's doppelganger telling James, your Laura disappeared? Like she's in the Black Lodge and it's the doppelganger got killed.
That would be, I think, one of my fears. Like this, that would be like my little tiny disappointment with the Owl Cave ring blown up to like
Because then, it's like, then Laura comes home and she's happy and she's alive and she's with Sarah and all's right in the world.
Yeah, like I think whatever they do with Laura and with Cooper, I think too, it has to be kind of, it can be on the supernatural plane and this wild doppelganger switching, manufacturing a double, different alternate worlds, going through an electric portal and all this stuff. It can be all of that, but it has to have some root in a kind of psychological, emotional resonance. Like there has to be something true about it at the end of the day where we go, okay, something about how Cooper split into these two beings is like it communicates some deeper truth, through that device. Just like kind of with Leland and Bob, and just like with Laura and the stuff she goes through. So if they make it like this sort of game of like, oh, everything you watched in Firewalk with me, it wasn't really about this girl's horrible last 7 days. It was like a doppelganger switching with it. It's like all this stuff. Like
what I would do?
It would do too much.
Joel, I would stand up and just clap.
At that point, it would just be a troll.
Wait, you know what? Lynch and Frost have already trolled us with this new series. They really have. They made everyone speculate about those damn gold shovels, and then what is it?
Oh, that was great. That was a great troll. Yeah,
right.
I love that.
But I am convinced that Nadine's gonna buy a shovel and kill Ed and Norma with it. I know it.
Yeah, I feel like. So, what have we seen so far that's been kind of a in-your-face thing? I feel like the only thing really was Ike the Spike, and that was a character that we don't really have, that he bloodily kills. We don't really have any investment in her.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think they've done anything yet that's a total like subversive shocker, like when Leland killed Maddie. A, you're killing off a regular character, and B,
that's why I will
you're
be
having a character that you like doing.
Listen. I know fans out there want it, but I myself, I mean, obviously, if it's done well, and I don't care. But if you just ask me my gut reaction, I'm not going to be too happy if they just set up Becky to be another Laura Palmer and they just kill her off. I won't like.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to do that. I think if anything, the parallel with Laura would be like, I don't want to be too hokey about it, like, oh, they save her or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it would be more of like it's going in that direction and something it changes or someone's a. Yeah, I don't think they can do the Laura thing again, either in terms of actually killing Laura again or killing a new character who's like her or whatever.
Right, and also, I mean, is Shelley like dating Red, or is she just flirting with him at the bar? And
yeah, we don't know. It is amazing how many of these. So I guess we counted it at the beginning, and it's probably only Ed and Audrey that we haven't seen yet, and I'm sure Audrey will be the last one. We got to talk about her too eventually.
Who?
Audrey.
Yeah.
But before we get to that, so we've seen all these characters, but it is amazing how all of them have been in at most 2 scenes.
For about, I've seen people online say that we've probably been in Twin Peaks 15 minutes, 20 minutes.
I don't agree with that because we've spent a lot of time with the sheriff's department.
Right. Yeah.
Andy and Lucy, and Hawk has been the only character other than Coop to be in every scene.
Right. Okay.
Every episode hour.
All right. So let me ask you this. I feel like we're just like going deeper in all these 47 layers here, but
I know.
Is Robert Forster's character, Frank Truman, is he keeping Andy and Lucy and Hawk on board because they were his brother's team and he's running this like department in the back, or is he, because some people have told me, oh no, in the original series they were doing this all the time in the back, we just never saw it. I don't believe that for a second.
Whether they were or not in some canonical universe, them doing this is definitely, it has a different relevance, them revealing it this way. Like, here we are 25 years later, here's this whole back room full of different strange people that almost work in parallel to, like, I'll tell you something else. If they are going with multiple worlds, Lynch and Frost, they would always do these sort of little metaphors for the bigger picture. They would have, for example, they'd have Ben sort of groping at Audrey and One-Eyed Jacks, and then it turns out the big Laura mystery is about incest, right? So they'd have these sort of microcosms where they would look at the bigger picture, or they'd have doubles, like we'd have all these little doublings, and then you'd have the big thing of Cooper having a double at the end, right? That so all these little things where they're like sort of microcosms of the bigger picture in a more down to earth way. So sheriff's station having these two parallel stations that almost don't come in contact with each other but coexist would be a great metaphor for having multiple worlds in this story that are, sort of doing different things and all of that.
And I was convinced for a while that, maybe Bobby became a sheriff's deputy so that he could better run the drugs, right? Because
right.
But
I'll give him the benefit of the doubt.
No, so listen, the reason why I give him the benefit of the doubt, not only because I want it to be true for that character in terms of having a redemption, but also you can't have Bobby and Deputy Chad being scumbags. I mean, Bobby's got
to have to be together if they were. They'd have to be partners.
And I can't see that. So I hope Bobby just kills
himself.
Who the hell
would want to work with Chad?
No. So I hope Bobby kills himself another deputy. But I do think though there was that telling moment where he tells Frank Truman, I've looked at all the trails and and Frank Truman goes, "You mean known trails?" He goes, Yeah. And that's why I was kind of thinking, well, maybe Bobby's still doing stuff because he's aware of all these secret ways that him and Leo and Mike used to deal the drugs and stuff like that. But so he's monitoring all those trails, and Frank Truman isn't even aware of those trails.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I really do hope he's on the straight and narrow and all that. I want to believe it, but I do think that him killing the deputy and Fire Walk with Me is going to come back somehow.
I think so. They're doing so many Fire Walk with Me references.
Yeah.
They're really making it clear that that's. Somebody made a good point of like it's almost like Fire Walk with Me is the prism. You put Twin Peaks through the prism of Fire Walk with Me, and the return comes out on the other side.
Right.
But so let's touch on Audrey though. We already mentioned her, but I think she'll. What's her relationship with Richard going to be like? I wonder. I do think she's his mother. I think she's got to be.
But you know what? Doesn't that kind of scare you in a way? It's like here's this, this. She was this very likable character. She had kind of a sinister.
But I think it's going in that direction, no matter what.
No, I know, but how does a woman like that raise Richard Horne unless she is just a bitter, nasty, horrible lady since she got blown up?
I mean, he might be a bad kid. He might have a chip on his shoulder. The whole thing. Okay, so the thing with Richard and Linda, as I'm saying this, I'm thinking about that. I think one problem with that, as much as I loved the sound of that idea initially, I think one problem with that is it depends on the nature of Cooper and the split and all that. Because if the Cooper who is, in Dougie and was stuck in the lodge is like the whole Cooper and this bad double got out there, okay, fine. Then, that has a nice symmetry to it. Good Cooper fathers Linda, bad Cooper fathers Richard. But if it's closer to what I think is much more thematically compelling and what the series is playing with, which is that both are parts of the same Cooper, you split in the lodge and there's a good one and a bad one, and they're both, parts of Cooper, then you kind of lose that symmetry because the Cooper who would have fathered Annie's child would have been the whole Cooper, and the Cooper who fathered Richard, according to this theory, would have been just a bad doppelganger of him, or would have been the bad half of him.
Right.
So, I mean, I guess you could still play with that. You could have somehow Richard. We're going so far out on a limb here because we don't even know really who these characters are or how they're related or whatever,
Or if they're related.
Right, or if they're related.
I mean, some people are saying it has to do with Richard Nixon and all that stuff, but
no way, Richard Nixon.
That's not coming back in the new series.
No,
I mean, we did get Wally Brando talking Lewis and Clark, right, for a line.
That's true. That's true. If Jackie Gleason shows
what about
up,
that?
then we'll know.
What about that? Let me throw that out to you. is Wally
Sure.
Brando really Lucy and Andy's kid, or did they have a baby that died? And
Oh, I
because
heard that theory.
no, though the reason why is because he's born the
Yeah.
next month after the Miss Twin Peaks contest, and theoretically, if he is the real kid,
Yeah.
and she wasn't even showing at the Miss Twin Peaks contest.
That's so. I mean, for a story that's gonna be at most a small subplot within this larger narrative, that's so complicated.
I know, but
I can't.
I mean,
I think
is Wally Brando leading the Bookhouse Boys? Is he coming back?
I
Or?
don't think we will ever see Wally Brando again.
Yeah,
Maybe one more scene at the end. If Harry, I hate to say it, if Harry, we have a big scene, maybe we'll see like Wally Brando up on the hill, like revving his engine or something, and saluting.
or maybe we'll see his old room being turned into the office or something like that. The
Yeah,
study.
exactly. Yeah, it's fun saying all this, but it's still shooting in the dark after 6 parts. Well, and as I'm even talking about this stuff, it's like, man, like I really have no idea, which is great.
No, it's wonderful. I mean, because if you were to ask me, oh, how's episode 3 going to start? I never would have said in outer space, but I did.
Yeah,
but,
he's going to land on, whatever planet Duke Atreides was from.
But one thing I did, one of my main things that I was kind of saying about the new series, I said, I guarantee you that by the end of episode 4, because they were doing those 4 episodes that first night, I said, by the time episode 4 ends, Cooper will probably be out of the lodge.
Yeah, I didn't think that would be the case, but they found a clever way to do
exactly.
it.
Exactly, but not the way I expected.
That brings us right back to the beginning of the conversation, which is going into this series, the big question was, how do you follow up from this cliffhanger? And because there's 2 problems. One is you want to have Cooper be the star of the show, not just evil Cooper, who we've been sort of led to believe is not the true Cooper or whatever, or even if he is, it's this weird distorted version of him. I can't at this point see any scenario in which Cooper Bob is like Leland Bob, where you're kind of led to believe that Leland is responsible for this. It's like, first of all, that just wasn't established enough with Cooper. Like, he had flaws that led to this split, but it's too much of a leap to say. Well, it's
like when he pukes up the cream corn, right? And then a couple episodes later, he says in the mirror, or Bob says, "Are you still with me?"
Yeah, that was a great line.
I think what they're referring to is because he puked up that cream corn because he didn't want to throw up. I think he was scared that he lost the Bob part of him.
Right, that's an interesting point too. So by the same token, although I don't think it could be Leland Bob,
right.
I do think that it has to be. It's almost like a reverse thing. Like, instead of saying Cooper's responsible for the doppelganger's actions, it's more like the doppelganger owes his existence to Cooper, if that makes sense. Like, in other words, it does have to somehow do with Cooper's identity, but you can't kind of put a judgment on it the way you're kind of like, I don't think Lynch is that judgmental of an artist, but you are led to be like, okay, that there's some sort of responsibility being laid at Leland's feet here. With Cooper, it doesn't quite work that way. So anyways, I got off on a wild
but William TPQ,
get back to the point.
William TPQ says, I'm glad Leland isn't playing Bob in this new series.
Yeah, that was what a lot of people guessed, right? Or that, I'll tell you what I'm glad. I wouldn't have minded that. I'm really glad they didn't cast some random guy in long hair. This is the new Frank Silva.
I was scared they'd done that with the homeless dude in the jail cell when his face goes flying up into the air.
Yeah, but even that is okay, this is a totally new form. I could deal with something like that. I just wouldn't want them to try and wink and a nudge. Hey, it's a guy who looks kind of like Frank Silva. That would be more insulting to me than casting somebody who looked nothing like him.
Well, we haven't had a recast yet, right? I mean, at all.
I don't think so. No.
The only one we've had is Maura Kelly.
or Toad. But that's like a weird
Well,
situation.
no, actually, it was two different Toads. What I've been told.
Yeah, well, they call him Toad in the Firewalk when they script, which just leads me to wonder, like, did Lynch and Engels like not remember who Toad was? Toad in the book, like, I don't know. I don't think so because they knew Kevin Young and they, dedicated the episode to his son and all of that stuff. So that's a whole other story. So, anyways, I got to get myself back on track here.
Okay.
So the story was, so what we're talking about, Cooper. Going into this this new series, they were kind of between a rock and a hard place because on the one hand, you want Cooper to be a character in this story and not just the evil Cooper. Hold on.
Right.
Okay, there we go. I think I muted myself for a second. On the other hand, as soon as you bring Cooper out of the lodge, what are you going to have, like a battle between him and the bad Coop? Like, I'm the real Coop. No, I'm the real Coop. And how long can that go on for? There were really not, there didn't seem to be many options for them to tell a dramatically compelling story. And I have to say, they found a really clever way to tell an 18-part story from this premise.
Yeah.
So congrats to them.
But you know what?
Couldn't wrap my head around it.
And it was a premise. It was a premise that nobody saw coming.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's true. It wasn't. Yeah. And you know what else is interesting? There was a lot of speculation that once Dougie came into the world, Bad Coop was like lost some power because he had that weird scene in the prison. But then from the scenes we saw of him in the following episode, I don't think that was the case. He seems to have full command of his faculties there,
But what I want to know is why. Okay, obviously he had that car accident, and then they put him in the prison, and etc. But why was he in the motel room with Daria downloading the blueprints to the prison beforehand?
Right. So he knew he was going to be there more.
Because she said that Ray got picked up for transporting guns across state lines. And what did they find him with? They found him with like a machine gun type of thing. So I think he was trying to either break into the prison, trying to get caught.
Yep.
Right.
Totally. Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think that's reasonable. I think that's a very Frostian kind of, like, Frost loves to do these sort of setups, and payoffs. That's kind of his thing. I think there's a lot of that in this series.
So, I mean, for him to take the phone up, right, and all this stuff's going on in the prison and everything, I've had people say to me, well, Cameron, why didn't he just, turn it into electricity and go through the phone? It was connected to the wall. But I don't think that doppelganger wants to go back to the lodge, right? So he doesn't want to go back. Right,
he doesn't want to, and it's hard to know exactly what the rules are, but there does seem to be constriction.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll also say too, I think it's interesting that he said to Bob, "You're still with me." I think, to me, that clarifies the idea that
I thought Bob said it to him, though. I thought it was Bob's voice saying that to him.
No, because, he says it after Bob's face. I think he says it after Bob's face disappears, and I guess I could see what you're saying. So you're saying, like, you think Bob was saying to the doppelganger.
We'll see. I think,
to me.
Yeah, I think,
I think I've still got your body to control.
Well, Bob was actually possessing Leland. I think Bob, in terms of the doppelganger, I think the doppelganger is its own person, but Bob can kind of come in and out like a genie in a bottle. Like, he can be summoned to kind of be there.
But couldn't he kind of do that with Leland as well? Because we see him, like, talking to Laura and stuff like that.
But Leland never willed.
She definitely feels his presence.
But Leland didn't, like, will him to show up there. I mean, just kind of he would just overtake Leland. Whereas
I don't know. I have my questions about that, though.
We'll find out.
I think the Bob may have worked with Leland similarly to how he works. Well, no, I think it's somewhat different because I don't think Leland ever knew that Bob was there.
Not until he ripped the memories. I'm going to pull the ripcord and watch him remember.
Exactly. And I think Leland knew stuff that was going on when Bob was in him.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think, at least in the film, in the series, it gets kind of ambiguous. But the sense I get is like he knew the things he was doing, but in his mind, he was doing those things without any spirit presence with him. He wasn't aware of the larger evil that he was like kind of embedded with and feeding off of, and that was prodding him and all of this stuff. Uh, Doppelganger Coop obviously is. I mean, it's just such a complicated situation. It's so hard
people in the
to
chat right now,
identify.
people in the chat are just, they're talking about how right before, Cooper goes, first of all, it said 15 on the right, and it had the holes for the cigarette lighter. And
yeah, what would have happened if he went through 15 though?
Well, he would have come out the cigarette lighter and exchanged with the doppelganger right there.
I don't know.
Well, anyway, but he comes back down. It had switched to the 3,
yes,
but right before he went through, he got zapped in the head with electricity, and then went through, and obviously then he became, Dougie Jones.
I think this was my take on the scene. I think that 3 was supposed to lead to the cigarette lighter.
Mm-hmm.
And my feeling was that the reason it brought him to Dougie instead was because the doppelganger covered his mouth and his nose. He wouldn't let Cooper in. And normally he'd keep coming, and he'd just come in. But because he held him off, he was diverted to the next available vessel, which was Dougie.
But
part of the reason
he takes him away. I mean, from that one, you don't go through that one.
No, I don't think 15 would have led to that though, because when we see him going through 3, the cigarette lighter is glowing, like he's gonna, and stuff is starting to come out of that. Right. So I think 3 leads to the cigarette lighter. I think 15 leads to somewhere we haven't seen yet.
Well, he went through that one, didn't he? I mean,
which was the first one?
Honestly,
3 or 15?
Off the top of my head, I can't.
No, 15 was first.
Right, 15 was first. 3 was the second.
I think 15 would have led somewhere different. And the lady was telling him, "Don't go through there. You're going to get killed if you go through."
But then, why did he say the one-armed man says you've been tricked? When he went after he,
because of the doppelganger, because the Dougie was manufactured.
Right, but he said you got tricked. So if he had gone through the first one, he wouldn't have been tricked.
I think when he arrived at the power, so there's multiple possibilities, obviously.
Right.
This was my sort of initial reading, and I haven't. I still kind of go with it, although you bring up some interesting points. So my view was he arrives at that, let's call it the power station, right?
Right.
He arrives at the power station. He's not really supposed to be there. He's been sent there first by the armed doppelganger attacking him, mm-hmm. and then by going through that glass box and getting sent in another direction. So he's kind of being spun into all these different directions.
Right.
He ends up in the power station. It's not like waiting for him, and when he arrives, he's sort of walking towards this portal, which is the electrical outlet. Mm. And the lady knows he's going to be killed if he goes through there, or his head's going to be cut off. She's going, which makes you think of Major Briggs. So she's leading him away. She goes up, and I love this idea I heard that she's like switching the currents, right? AC/DC something. So she goes up, she kind of switches the current, she gets electrocuted, which may or may not have to do with, that may just be an unfortunate accident as she's switching the currents. She touches the copper or somebody was describing it. So anyways.
And I think this section is what he's kind of drawing. The ladder and he's got the arrows and the.
Oh, good point. Yeah, interesting. I hadn't thought about that. I thought maybe there were like fire escapes on the building that they're, insuring or whatever.
It could be anything.
Yeah, we have no idea. So it's like Chutes and Ladders, basically.
Yeah.
Playing a game of Chutes and Ladders. But so anyways, in this, so she goes up, she changes it to what it needs to be for him to go where he needs to go, right? So now he's got a path through to the doppelganger. Now, I think the significance of the cigarette lighter is that just happens to be the closest electrical
right
thing to, if he was in a motel room, he'd go through that. But he's going toward the doppelganger. So that's all going, at this point, he's found a way to the doppelganger. The doppelganger holds his nose and covers his mouth like, I'm not going to let you in.
I thought he was trying to just hold him to puke.
Well, he is, I think, but I think Cooper comes in and the Garmin Bozia goes out and Cooper comes in.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That's my kind of sense of it. Is he releases all that pain and sorrow that he's collected, and now Cooper comes back and kind of takes his place, and he goes back to the lodge, right? Just like Dougie throws up, but a smaller sample. So my take was he's stopping himself from throwing up, but also stopping Cooper from coming in. You might have a point though. I mean, maybe he's only trying to stop himself from throwing up. Like maybe the other part isn't. So, but for whatever reason, it looked to me like he was. I don't know why I thought this, but it looked like he was blocking something from coming in as well as going out, right?
Well, that's the beauty. That's the beauty of this new show is every time you watch it, it's like you see even more stuff. I mean, someone's fifth viewing, people are seeing more than on their second viewing. It's amazing.
My idea is it's like a circuit or whatever. He's going toward the doppelganger. The doppelganger is blocking him, and it's like, can't go there. Okay, what's the next fastest route? And Dougie was created by the doppelganger specifically for that purpose. And if Dougie didn't exist, Cooper's force coming out of the purple room through that, it would have been too strong. It would have finally just overcome him and he would have been sent back. So the purpose, the trick was, I took it to be, the trick was that they created this Dougie figure. And that was a diversion. That was to sort of divert Cooper away from the doppelganger and send him into that vessel instead.
And here I thought
that vessel because.
Okay.
So.
And here I thought he got tricked because he went through the wrong outlet.
Yeah, I mean that's an interesting possibility too. So then the question is, should he have gone through 15? Whatever the case is, I don't think 15 led to the cigarette lighter.
I've heard other people other people have told me if Cooper had gone through after 25 years of being, mind tripped out, if he had shown up, Doppelganger could have just freaking taken him out. I mean, he would.
Well, Doppelganger wouldn't be there though.
Oh, they would just automatically switch. They wouldn't.
They have to switch.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why. But because because of Dougie's existence, he had somebody else to switch with, and now there could be two Coopers in this world. Or he diverted, and this is, I think, where I started thinking about are these alternate worlds, is like he wasn't anywhere near Dougie. Dougie was
right.
Nevada, and he was in South Dakota. So at first I thought that the doppelganger was driving near Dougie's house, and like making sure he was close by so that Cooper would be forced.
But was like, what is the doppelganger?
Doesn't have anything to do with it.
But what is the doppelganger doing with Phyllis, like framing the Principal Hastings? I mean, is it just to get to Betty Briggs?
Totally.
I mean,
right. I like that idea. So you're saying Betty is the secretary, right?
Yeah. But isn't that the one that he's supposedly having an affair with?
Well, no, he was having an affair with the librarian who died.
Oh, okay. No, Ruth. No, not Ruth. Was he having an affair with Ruth?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay. Because that whole like storyline, I mean, you almost have to watch it like 3 or 4 times to just kind of get all the names and new characters straight,
Yeah.
But then I've had some people tell me, they show me pictures of the inside of the trunk and that little chunky meat they find, and kind of looks like the same meat that's missing from the blind Asian woman's cheek. But other people say it looks like a tongue.
She had something missing from.
Yeah, she has like a little like hole like right here on her cheek. It's missing.
I didn't notice that.
Well, there's a lot to notice.
Like the opposite of the lady in the radiator.
Yeah, I mean, heck, there's even a shot that reminds me of Dune in the purple room when he's looking over the water over the balcony and stuff like that. Yeah.
I was thinking the same thing. All of his films have kind of been referenced at this point.
Yeah. But it's like, yeah, I mean, we're 6 episodes in. I mean, you never know, by the 8th episode we could be in Paris and just hanging out over there, and I mean, there's no way to real.
Well, actually, didn't David, and I was surprised because I thought it was going to be international, but didn't David Nevins say, and I know they shot something in Paris.
Yes.
Probably at the print shop that he loves.
At the Club Silencio.
Right? Item Paris.
No, Club Silencio.
Really?
Maybe there too. But
is that a club based on his film, I assume?
Yeah, but it's not the Silencio Club from Mulholland Drive. But
it's not based on that?
I don't know what it's going to be. I mean, I'm saying that I don't know what its purpose is going to be in the show, but it's called Club Silencio in Paris.
Right.
But
I'm just wondering, it is based on Mulholland Drive, the original.
Right.
Club.
But it's not, I mean, if he wanted to do the Mulholland Drive theater, he would have just gone back to that location.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
So but David Nevins said that he said it doesn't leave the country, but it takes place all over the country. But that's not true. It already went to Argentina.
And
that's already a lie.
And what I love about the Argentina thing is it perks up all the hardcore Twin Peaks fans, because that's a reference that you only get by watching or by reading the screenplay to Fire Walk with Me. I mean, they kind of hint a little bit out of it in the Missing Pieces, but before that came out, the only way you got Buenos Aires, Argentina was reading the Fire Walk with Me screenplay.
Do they even say it in the Missing Pieces that's where it takes
No, it just you can just kind of tell. But
yeah, so that's true. It's only in the screenplay.
Yeah.
Huh. I never thought about it. I assumed. I mean, part of me assumed it was in Fire Walk with Me, but you never hear him say anything about Argentina in Fire Walk with Me. Which is funny, like having watched that film, a number of times before Missing Pieces. Missing Pieces already embedded in my head the whole Argentina part of his story.
Right. So, I don't know if you have other stuff to talk about, but one question I definitely want to throw your way is, listen, the watching numbers for this show are very low on Showtime proper, but in terms of streaming and other platforms, it's like doing very, very well.
I heard about the numbers for the first 4 or the first 2 or whatever.
I don't know how well it's doing now.
I heard it did badly. I heard part 5 was like terrible live numbers, but I haven't heard the streaming numbers for it yet.
So my question to you is, do you think that this is, an open and shut season with Mark Frost's final dossier book coming out in October, and then it is what it is? Or do you think that Showtime will maybe press them and say, hey, anytime you want to come back and do another Twin Peaks, you're more than welcome to? Or do you think Showtime's like, it's not really worth it? But they're getting so much press,
Yeah, they're getting press. They're getting prestige. They're getting... apparently, their main concern is less live ratings than subscriptions and streaming, and that seems to be doing well. My guess would be, I don't know what they say diplomatically, because, if I had to guess, my guess would be diplomatically they say, let us know if you guys want to work together. We definitely would like to work together again. And then if they do come back and say, okay, if they don't, then maybe they get to work on other projects and there's good blood, or whatever the opposite of bad blood is between them.
Right.
On the other hand, if Lynch and Frost do come back and say, hey, we've got an idea, we want to do another Twin Peaks. At that point, my guess is they back off a little bit and they go, okay, we'd like to do it all streaming, released all at once. We don't think it's as well suited for a live weekly series, would be my guess, just based on the numbers. Like, they're not really benefiting at all, I think, from having it eat up airtime.
But I will say this though, if it had dropped as one thing like on Netflix.
Oh, I'm so glad it didn't.
No, but if it had,
yeah,
we would not, well, maybe this channel would, but the majority of the people making YouTube videos and writing articles and all that, that would have ceased 3 weeks ago. I mean, it just would have been over and done with. I mean, they're prolonging it by releasing it week by week. Otherwise, the conversation would be over.
Let me put it another way. Maybe they would say, yeah, I mean, they're a TV station, so they have to put stuff on the TV. It just they don't have like streaming exclusives or anything, right?
So it says Family Guy 10 says part 5 254,000 and part 6 got 270,000. I don't know if that's streaming or what. I'm assuming that's watching.
That's live. That's just live. I heard that. It doesn't give the streaming numbers.
Mala Cream says Showtime has said they're very happy with the streaming numbers. I mean, I've heard really good stuff. 100Z Mad.
I assume over 1 million.
I mean, 100Z Mad said, sadly, I think it is probably a commercial flop. I mean, I will say this. I do think that this new season, as much as I love it, I think it's a niche season for an already niche show. Like,
well, look at the numbers from the pilot of season 1 down to this.
Yeah.
It's like, I mean, I think there was a nice idea out there, and I had my doubts, but it was nice to kind of think, well, maybe this is possible. That Twin Peaks comes back and just kind of seizes the zeitgeist, right? Mm-hmm. And this day and age, there's no way in hell it ever gets the numbers it got back in 1990, even when it was supposedly not doing as well. Mm-hmm. It's just not going to get those.
I mean,
numbers.
season 2 finale had 10 million live watchers.
Right, and it was a huge flop. Yeah. It was that was like third and last place in the ratings, lost to a rerun of Northern Exposure.
Well,
but those are like, aren't those like Game of Thrones numbers now?
Yeah. Well, I mean,
or does Game of Thrones do more than that?
No, actually, I think it does less than that.
20 million?
No, it's less than that.
Yeah, 20 million is a lot. Walking Dead gets like 15 million, right?
I think so. I don't know about still, but I mean, the thing is, I was like, listen, I was under the impression, that the new show would have come out and it would have started, I wouldn't say normally, but somewhat like something that new viewers could kind of come into, and then it would get progressively stranger and stranger, obviously, when it went on. Nope, first scene of this new series just begins in the Black Lodge, and then we're in the Gray Lodge or whatever.
Yeah, no, they made absolutely no attempt to make this
new audience friendly
at all, and
which I loved as a hardcore fan.
To be fair, even if they had, the numbers suggest people weren't watching in the first place, really. 500,000 is pretty damn small for a brand new, hyped up show.
I mean, the Vampire
I was in New York that weekend. There was Laura Palmer and Cooper on the side of buses, on the side of bus stops. So it was out there. But the problem is they got viewers to watch the pilot, 1990, 34 million viewers, because they said, who killed Laura Palmer? Tune in to find out. Ooh, what's this about? This looks interesting. You know, there wasn't a tagline for this new series because he didn't want anyone to know what it was about. And now that we're watching it, there couldn't be. What's the tagline going to be? Will Cooper find his true self? Like, there's no way into this series other than just if you're into like offbeat art and you're going to give something a chance that without understanding it. There's no way into the series other than watching the old series, which itself ended up being a flop on network television in the early 90s. So
there's no way you could have cut this new series, what we've seen so far, into a trailer that would have made any sense anyway, you know?
It's totally Lynch. The amazing thing to me about Lynch is I don't want to say the acclaim he gets, because the acclaim he gets is because he's one of the greatest directors of all time. So that's understandable. People who are judging a filmmaker aren't going by popularity or whatever. But he has like a certain buzz and cachet in the media that's very disproportionate to his actual audience in terms of numbers. He hardly ever turned ever made was Dune. Okay, let me clarify here. I'm not talking about the difference between the budget. I'm not talking about how much of a profit it made after, marketing and the budget and everything like that. Because Eraserhead was a huge success. It had a tiny budget, no real marketing, and it made so many more times its budget. I'm just talking sheer numbers. The sheer number of tickets sold, the sheer number of money grossed at the box office, the sheer number of audience members, other than the pilot of Twin Peaks, his most successful film was Dune, which made $40 million.
And the Lost Highway soundtrack.
Really?
I just want to throw out this real quick. Family Guy 10 says Walking Dead for the finale got 11 million views. Game of Thrones got 8 million. And I just want to say that Vampire Diaries at its worst episode in its worst season was still close to almost 2 million viewers. Think about that.
That got canceled?
No, it ended. But what I'm saying, though, is that like a show on the CW network, a channel that a lot of people, didn't watch a long time, for a while, those were still getting 1 million viewers. So, Showtime is a pay thing. Listen, this is what I thought was going to happen. It didn't happen, of course.
I didn't think it was going to be. Oh yeah, keep going.
No, I was just going to say, I thought Showtime was going to release 9 episodes of this, and then next year release the back 9, so that people couldn't just cancel their subscriptions.
Yeah, that would have been wise probably, but I'm glad they didn't.
No, because I think that a lot of people would have. People, from what I understand, and again, and this isn't like the hardcore Twin Peaks fans, the casual viewers who tune in, what's this Twin Peaks about? They turned it off, what I understand, midway through the first hour of that 2-hour pilot. They were done.
Which is also what they did in episode 8, season 2 premiere.
Yes,
of Twin Peaks. So, this is just. I think the thing is. There was a lightning struck in the spring of 1990, and I'll tell you, I was 6. I was not paying attention to this at the time. But just from looking back on it, you can see even then there was a wild discrepancy between the media and the critics' excitement for it and the people who were watching's excitement for it and the actual numbers. It was a mid-range show in season 1. It was like 43rd out of 90 or something.
But Leonard wants to remind you that at that time there were like 4 big TV channels. So, so there was that. There's also an article for those of you who are interested. I think it's by IndieWire that came out today about how Lynch, quoting here Miguel, how Lynch killed Showtime's plans for the big marketing campaign.
I read that. Yeah,
okay,
I read that.
So what did you think about that?
That was interesting.
So,
I would love to know what the marketing campaign was.
Well, they did posters and billboards everywhere, but I guess Lynch just served that. What is it? They wanted to do all this stuff, and Lynch just served them donuts. What was?
So here's what happened from the story. They went over to his house and made a presentation.
And you're out.
For Twin Peaks, and Lynch interrupted them halfway through, and he said, "This is great. I love this. You guys did a damn good job." And they all had donuts and smiled. And then 2 days later, Lynch called Showtime and said, "I don't want to do that marketing campaign. We're not going to do it. I don't want any images from the new series." So they had to scramble, and they ended up mostly just featuring images from the old series.
Right.
He said, "You can use anything you want to use from the first 2 seasons. You have free reign with that. Do whatever you want to do."
Those James and Evelyn billboards would have been amazing.
But he said, but nothing from the news. And obviously they did show a few shots eventually. He's very late in the game. They didn't really explain how that came out of it. But they didn't really explain, as I recall, what campaign was. And maybe they can't because it still involves stuff we haven't seen yet. So it's still kind of under wraps. But the next Reflections book is going to be a hell of a read, because I feel like there's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes here that we're not. Is it
possible that Lynch? No, you can ask me in a second. But is it possible that Lynch and Frost are just, while we may be enjoying it, is this just a giant middle finger to like just corporation entertainment today too? It's like, you have to admit, it is like everything that people,
Yeah.
they want us to think about. Look at those Entertainment Weekly covers and those pictures.
I know they were on Jimmy Fallon. Kyle MacLachlan was on Jimmy Fallon, and
they promised.
Jim Belushi was on Good
Yeah.
Morning America.
But
And
what I'm saying though is all those pictures, all those nostalgic posters, and
yeah.
right, that has nothing to do with what we've seen on this new show.
I didn't think it would though either. That's the funny thing. It's like, but I guess you kind of had to be sort of in on it a little bit to know that, to like be following the news for 3 years. If you were just a casual viewer, like, oh, I remember Twin Peaks. Oh yeah, I think I'll watch that again. Yeah, it's totally clear to me. I would love to believe that you could sort of convert Twin Peaks, that you could convert Lynch's vision without sacrificing it into like this mass entertainment. And they did that for basically an episode or two in 1990, which is kind of amazing. But that was all it ever was. This is really reinforcing it, because it's like, okay, and it makes me kind of chuckle, because it's like this has happened so many times. They go, okay, well, look, the TV show, it flopped, but 10 million people watched that last episode. Right. If you can get those 10 million people to buy a ticket to Firewalk with Me, we've got it made. And then Firewalk with Me made $4 million. So it's like, so now it's like, okay, well, it's 2017. Cable shows, they don't get, high numbers at all. True Detective was a massive hit, and that had like 3 or 4 million viewers, So that's all. So now if you get all the people who went to see Firewalk with Me to watch this Twin Peaks: The Return, we'll have a hit, and the numbers drop again. It's just like, it's always proportionate.
And that's why I love the fact that Lynch and Frost. That's why I love the fact that Lynch and Frost have made this new series for the hardcore Twin Peaks fans.
Yeah, they didn't make any sense. They told exactly the story they want to make. I'm amazed they got the opportunity. And to be fair, we're talking about these live numbers. I have no doubt that 5 years from now, Showtime is still going to be reaping benefits from this in a way that they are not going to be from Ray Donovan, which gets like 10 times the numbers of Twin Peaks.
Right.
But who the hell is going to be talking about or watching or buying things related to Ray Donovan in 5 years?
Well, it's like
I mean, maybe it's a good show. I don't know. I haven't watched it, but it just seems to me that they know this has legs. It's had legs for 25 years, and it's going to keep having legs.
It's like Eric Idle tells this lovely story about how he went into Universal Pictures to pitch Monty Python's The Meaning of Life. And he walked in and he like gave him like a poem and saying, this is what we're going to do. And Universal was like, yeah, that's great. We're greenlighting it. You go, you do it. And it was years later that Eric Idle realized that Universal only greenlit the movie because they knew that if they signed Monty Python to their label, that they could sign any comedian in Hollywood to do whatever movie they wanted, just because they would say, I want to work with a studio that works with Monty Python and gives them free reign. So I think
good point.
While Twin Peaks might have these numbers over here, I think just the fact that Lynch and Frost were allowed to do whatever they wanted will allow other showrunners and filmmakers to be like, oh, Showtime is our home. That's where we need to go. They gave Lynch and Frost freedom to do what they wanted to do. And I think they did it also as a way of just to lure more talent to their network.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think it will ultimately be beneficial to them. But the notion that, oh boy, maybe Twin Peaks is going to become a pop culture phenomenon again. Just, nothing. First of all, hardly anything has room to become a pop culture phenomenon anymore. It's just there's too many things going on to, focus on this or that thing. So even the things that are phenomena, like Game of Thrones or Breaking Bad or whatever, the Walking Dead or whatever, you have maybe 5% of the population watching it.
It's a lot.
It's a lot, but when Twin Peaks aired, and it, the pilot that was close to, that was probably more than 10% watching it. So that's literally half. I don't know. Maybe that's not as bad as that. 5%. No, wait, I did something. Did something totally off with that. I don't know. I can't do math.
But I do think
But
that I agree with you that like 5 years from now, a lot of Showtime shows people aren't going to be watching anymore. But this Twin Peaks thing is going to live on forever.
yeah, exactly. So I mean that's all. It's a long-term vision. I think, and I think that's probably how it was sold from the beginning. I do think they would have liked to have a True Detective type thing on their hands, you know. Which, and again, even True Detective, that was I think 3 or 4 million, you know. But it's
Well, I guarantee you this: Kyle MacLachlan is going to win.
It's too hard to boil down.
I think Kyle MacLachlan is going to win a lot of awards for this show, though.
He should. That's for sure.
Yeah, I do. But I guess I want to ask you is what do you think is going to happen with Diane and now that she's introduced? What do you think they're going to do with her character?
That was a good payoff. I mean, in a way, it was almost a little disappointing because it's like, it is. It's Laura Dern as Diane. Oh, we all kind of knew that was coming. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't there. It's Twin Peaks surprises you so often that it's almost a little of a letdown when it doesn't. But they had to do that. It's just too rich to not do. Mm-hmm. You know, you have the whole history of them together in Blue Velvet. It's perfect. So.
And honestly, like I said a million times, I've always pictured Laura Dern as that character.
Yeah.
And so
cool. So, I love that that's the thing now.
Yeah, I mean so much so much so that when they did Fire Walk with Me, I thought that they would show her and she would play that part. So
yeah.
It was great to see.
So that's it. So now whenever we watch, you know, the pilot, anything, we'll know he's talking to Laura Dern. Like that's
the best part about it.
Kind of cool.
The best part about it is it silences all those wild naysayers that were out there saying that Cooper was insane and Diane never existed.
Unless this is all part of the false reality.
Oh yes, Diane was created by the doppelganger.
No, and I'll say something else too. I've toyed with this theory a lot, and you know, people have sort of rightly pointed out, well, if you're predicting it, it's almost like it can't be true because Lynch doesn't. The things he does usually aren't that predictable. So my kind of response to that is, I think the difference is Frost is part of this, and he likes to kind of have a more, you know, a puzzle that you could figure out theoretically, and that I think maybe the idea that these are multiple worlds that we're seeing and one of them is not quite real. That could be the sort of the Frostian part that we play with, and is it or isn't it, and eventually we figure it out. And the Lynchian part will come with what that leads to. So when we find that out, where does that go, and what does it tails? That'll be the sort of the Lynchian paradox thing. But part of me also thinks if this is going to be like Mulholland Drive or Lost Highway or whatever, then that's not going to happen because it is it's a little too on the nose. But Twin Peaks was always sort of an on the nose version of Lynch at times. You know, it was willing to go off in those other directions, but in general, like I remember somebody, I think Daniel Smith made the point, like if Mulholland Drive had continued, would we have found a whole mythology about Mr. Roke and the creature behind the diner and all this stuff where they were part of this cosmology of a sort of a lodge-like thing and all of that? Well, it didn't become a show, it became a movie, so they remain these enigmatic, sort of Jungian, inexplicable things. But Twin Peaks was a show, and even now where it's an 18-hour movie, it's still kind of in that mode. So we are going to get some more concrete kind of frameworks for these things.
But I still maintain, and I don't know how this would be, but I still maintain that this show is going to end with a happy ending.
I think it will be a positive ending. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, that's more what
I don't think it's going to be a happy ending. I think it'll be in line with like the last scene of Fire Walk with Me or the end of Inland Empire.
You don't think it's going to end like Blue Velvet?
I don't think it's going to. No, definitely. I don't think it'll end like Blue Velvet or Wild at Heart. But I also don't think it'll end like Mulholland Drive or Lost Highway.
With Cooper blowing his head off.
Yeah, or like just turning back into the doppelganger and blah, 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 whatever. I think it'll be in between. It'll be in the Firewalk with Me Inland Empire mode where there's tragedy. I find it hard to believe it's going to end with Cooper like, here I am back in Twin Peaks and I'm fully Cooper again. Boy, that was a hell of a journey, wasn't it? Fighting off that doppelganger. Now I can, I think part of the problem, I don't think either Lynch or Frost is on board with that. I've already kind of pointed out how in his later films they kind of have a different vibe, where it's like, the happy quote unquote endings just mean that you've transcended the physical realm, right? So I don't think for him a happy ending is you're still in this world. It's freaking flying ants. Sorry, it's like you've kind of elevated into another realm or something. It's the whole transcendental meditation thing or whatever.
And
but also for Frost, this is important.
Yeah.
Frost was asked about the show and what it's about, and he said, you go, I wish I could quote it directly, but it was like, you go through life and you age, and then, things change and you die, and we're aware of that, and that's at the heart of this series or something. So it doesn't exactly sound to me like, I think the problem with that is, I think they're trying to tell a story which is about life in general, and life doesn't end with you being like happy and back in the place of, whatever. It ends with you dying and then something else happens. So I don't know if Cooper's literally going to die, but I think wherever he ends up is going to be different than where he began.
So it's not going to end with him back in the Black Lodge.
I don't think it would end there either, because that's too
there'd be a revolt.
Yeah, I mean, when you say back in the Black Lodge, like maybe if it's like the end of Firewalk with Me, where it's like, that's more like a White Lodge type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it could, put it this way, it could end in the Red Room, but it can't end in the Black Lodge. Take that as you will.
Just real quick, do you think Red, when he flips that dime and it hovers in there, is that just like a drug hallucination, or do you think Red is actually little Nicky grown up?
Little Nicky grown up.
Yeah, that's pretty wild. So, is there anything else you want to talk about before we go?
No, I can't think of it. I'll probably think of something afterwards, but yeah, I mean, it's funny, like, I feel like coming on, it was like, man, I've got so much stuff I want to talk about in terms of where it could go and speculate. And I feel like after we've done it, now I just feel kind of like, well, probably none of that stuff is going to come true.
Well, that's what I say in a lot.
Now that I've like articulated it, it suddenly seems like much more hollow.
Well, that's what I say in a lot of.
Like, it's interesting and it's fun.
Yeah.
But it's like, when you say it, you kind of think about it and you're like, that's going to be something totally different,
Yeah, I mean, a lot of my videos, I tell people, I say, this is how I'm interpreting this stuff right now, but 3 episodes from now, I could just be full of crap, and none of this is real.
Yeah.
So, but I've also said to people, I said, we reserve the right that, at the end of 18 episodes to look back and be like, yeah, this was terrible.
I don't know, though. I feel like if we enjoy the ride this much, then it's something was done right.
I will never find this
even
terrible.
If we don't like where it adds up to.
Yeah, I will never find this terrible. But I might be a little disappointed if it doesn't like end somewhat, fantastic. So.
I think for me, the key. At this point, I could say the thing that I would be disappointed by. Mildly disappointed by, not like devastated, like, oh, this show is terrible or whatever.
Right.
I want it to have that like emotional, spiritual, kind of psychological core where you can have fun with the story and all the different things it's doing, but in the end, it kind of tells you something that kind of makes sense to you in some like the original series did, like Firewalk with Me did, If it just ends up, and I'm thrilled that it doesn't seem to be going in this direction so far. But if it just ended up with like good Coop defeats the bad Coop, and wasn't that fun to see those two things? It's like that's to me. I need to. It needs to have resonance. So that's one thing. The other thing is, and we haven't talked about this at all. Stylistically, there's a lot of stuff that's very late Lynch, and that was my first thought when I watched the first 2 episodes. Very immediate reaction was, oh boy, this is like late Lynch doing Twin Peaks, Inland Empire, Mulholland Drive Lynch. However, the more I've watched it, well, that's true. There's also, and actually this is something I thought right away too. It's like, oh, this is a lot of Eraserhead in here, and a lot of like kind of, that type of colder early Lynch vibe. I feel like I can notice the absence of Mary Sweeney. And this kind of brings me back to something you said once. You said that Lynch, I think you said that Lynch once said, nothing influences your life or your work or something more than who you're with. Did you say that?
I don't remember, but I could have.
Okay, probably not then. I'm probably getting confused about it. But I think you said something like that because you were saying the shift from Isabella Rossellini to Mary Sweeney.
No, Dwayne Dunham to Mary Sweeney.
But I think you were also talking about that he was dating Isabella Rossellini.
Right.
And then but yeah, what's interesting about Mary Sweeney, she was both of those things. She was like his personal partner and his creative partner. Mm-hmm. And really, other than I think Badalamenti, she was his most consistent collaborator for the longest period. You had Dwayne Dunham or Jack Fisk, but there would be like 10 or 15 years before projects with them.
Well, Dwayne Dunham did Blue Velvet, Twin Peaks Pilot, and Wild at Heart.
Right. But then he didn't work with him again till now.
Because he was with Mary Sweeney.
Exactly. But I'm just saying, but that's only 4 years, right? That's 86 to 90. She worked with him for 11 years.
Wouldn't you argue that those 3 works were his most prominent? I mean, that was him and his.
Well, no, but my only point is in terms of the time.
Sure.
And the span.
Okay.
Is he's working with her for this long time, and I think for probably more works overall.
Well, even Jennifer Lynch told me she didn't like Inland Empire at all.
I remember
because Mary Sweeney didn't edit it.
Right. So the interesting thing about this is I can see kind of the lack of her there in terms of that, but also even with Inland Empire, like he was, that was kind of as their relationship was ending, and it still kind of had a feel of a lot of the work he did with her, not in terms of the editing so much, of the shaping of the material, but in terms of the rhythm of it and kind of that. So far, that's all a long ways to say I haven't had like that sort of visceral emotional sweep with most of it. The Becky scene is an exception. Probably the Purple Room, especially the first time, is an exception. But I haven't got that kind of that's a good way to put it, that kind of romantic, humanist kind of feel from like Lost Highway, Mulholland Drive, Fire Walk with Me, where it's just this flowing of the material that kind of hypnotizes you and makes you feel like you're in a dream. For the most part, I'm not getting that quite as much with this. I'm getting a lot of other interesting Lynch stuff, and if that's all I get, I'll be okay with that. But my favorite Lynch is those later films, the ones he did with Mary Sweeney, more so than Blue Velvet and Eraserhead. And those are great movies too. But the ones that really like get me on that like gut level are those later films. And I feel like Return maybe getting to that point where it goes there. Just because that's how a lot of Lynch works are structured. Mulholland Drive is a good example. When I go back and watch that now, I'm not as into the first part of it as I am the last part.
Well, that's your specialty, fractured narrative.
Right, but I mean, even knowing what's coming, it's like there's something about the way that those scenes are shot and just the emotional intensity of them, the Diane Selwyn stuff. That even after like however it got 20 viewings or however many, I've seen that film probably more than Fire Walk with Me, even, probably more than any other Lynch film. And the back half, that last part of it, just always hits me in like a more sort of a deeper way than the first part. And I kind of feel like something similar might happen with The Return, where I enjoy and I love all the stuff and where's it going and everything, but the real weighty stuff is going to happen in the back half or even the back third of the series. There's going to be a real sharp shift, and there may even be a sort of a narrative twist at that point. If we're not dealing with alternate worlds,
hell, I mean,
that would be when maybe we start dealing with
episode 9 could end one story, and then we could see it from a flip perspective for the back 9. So,
right, exactly. I wouldn't be surprised if something like that takes place. I can't describe what it's going to be because who knows. So I kind of suspect that, but I'm interested to see if he does do that. Can he evoke that same kind of, like, how much of what I love about those movies is the Lynch Sweeney crossing paths versus just Lynch kind of, using her talents in a certain way. Like, I don't know. Or even if it's not her specifically, was he at a certain point in his life where he was kind of tapping into that vibe through here? I feel like I haven't totally seen it yet. And if I don't, again, I'm still on board. Like I'm loving this, but I want to know if it's gonna go deep like that at a certain
well,
point.
it's funny you say that all this because like I'm like the flip opposite. Like I love all the stuff like before Fire Walk with Me.
Yeah.
And then
all the Dwayne Dunham stuff.
Yeah, and then all the other stuff with Mary Sweeney, like I really like those as well. But I think the strongest film that they, besides Mulholland Drive, but that was a different story. I think The Straight Story is probably their masterpiece in terms of tone.
Yeah, but even Matt with Straight Story, I feel like even though it doesn't have that fractured narrative and it doesn't have it's different in so many ways.
Sure.
It has there's like a similar style to it. Like there's those long dissolves between the field and the tractor going through, and it has this kind of, and to be fair, a lot of that style started with Wild at Heart, which wasn't a Mary Sweeney edited.
But she did work on it. She is in the credits.
Interesting. Yeah. Was she an assistant or additional editor or something?
She was
so
she helped Dwayne Dunham. So she
yeah. Right. So yeah, I don't know if how that works, but it seems like for the most part there's a certain feel to those works, including Straight Story, and even I feel somewhat bleeding into Inland Empire, even though it's much rawer and bigger of a beast than Mary Sweeney probably would have allowed. I don't know. I mean, I don't think she said he's kind of had his sort of strict ideas, but I think with editing, there was an interview I read with her where she said, and it's interesting because now he's got an editing credit, co-editing credit for this, and he obviously edited Inland Empire by himself and all of his digital shorts.
And the Missing Pieces.
Exactly. Yeah, and the Missing Pieces, great point. So, which feels like Missing Pieces feel like a lot of The Return in a lot of ways.
You made a point. You made a point, and I want to shout this out. That the sheriff scenes in the Missing Pieces are more like this new series than the original series.
Yes, that's true. Yeah, because even to plot points, the whole thing of Lucy being afraid on the phone or whatever. I know that they had that scripted at some point in the pilot or whatever, but like her fear of, or her misunderstanding of like how phones work or whatever. That's something. It seems like he watched The Missing Pieces and we're like, let's put that in The Return.
No. See, this is my theory, because there's so many scenes in Fire Walk with Me that weren't put in The Missing Pieces, that it's my theory that he specifically chose these scenes for The Missing Pieces. One, maybe just to show Jack Nance, but the rest of them are there because they're going to play into this new series. Like everything we're seeing ties into those Missing Pieces. which is really interesting to me. That like he specifically called out moments because it's like all that stuff about electricity between the intercourse between two worlds. None of that's in Fire Walk with Me. I mean, it's only in the missing piece. It's so like
there's
for
a ton of stuff that's
like
only.
For instance, the doppelganger says, I haven't brushed my teeth yet, and the first thing Sonny Jim says to Dougie is, "I brushed my teeth."
Yeah, I love that. That was like one of the few, like there's been a bunch of stuff I missed. People pointed out and I go, oh my God, of course. I caught that right away. And those are Sonny Jim's first words in the entire series after 3 episodes.
Yeah.
Which was so perfect. And that's the type of thing. So when I see stuff like that, I go, oh, okay, I'm getting, maybe people are right. I'm getting a little carried away with this. This is a different world, or this is kind of a dream world or something. When stuff like that happens, I go, I don't know. This feels an awful lot to me.
Yeah.
Like he's seeing some kind of reflection of the other
and they keep calling him Mr. Dreamweaver and all this other stuff. There's
Wake Up.
Yeah.
And I'm sticking with that idea. I'm leaning towards it, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
But if they do go that route, and we're to believe that the FBI and the other stuff is either another reality or more real or whatever, that would be a first. Well, no, actually it wouldn't, because he intercuts different realities in Inland Empire. I was going to say usually he goes from one to the other and kind of sticks to one, but no, Inland Empire is there's definitely cross-cutting between different realities.
Oh my God, you could cut up every scene of Inland Empire, throw it in the air, land it on the floor, and cut it back together. It'd be the same movie. So anyway, all right, let's wrap this up. We've gone 2.5 hours. Right. So all right, so tell everybody where they can find you.
You can find me on lostinthemovies.com, and my YouTube channel's Lost in the Movies. Twitter's @LostInTheMovies. So pretty much Tumblr is Lost in the Movies with a dash between each word. So they're all pretty easy to find. They're all united. Just Google Lost in the Movies, I guess, or go to lostinthemovies.com.
And you guys all know where to find me. Look in the show notes. You can email me. You can go to the Facebook page for Obnoxious Anonymous. Make sure to like these videos and share them, and also to subscribe. I'm still 300 subscribers away from my goal at the end of this month, which is 2,000 subscribers. We're at 1,700 right now. Help me get there, please. It'd be amazing to get to 2,000 subscribers while we're still in the height of Twin Peaks. We got 2 more months of this. This is pretty amazing, Joel.
Yeah, I know. It's just like relish every week, and they actually come so fast. Like it's like I've been thinking, okay, so it's Sunday and I'm watching it, and right in, I gotta wait a whole week, but then suddenly it's like Thursday or Friday. It's like, oh, there's another episode in 2 or 3 days. Mm-hmm. I think in a way, episode 5 was almost more exciting than even Twin Peaks coming back, because it was like, well, now Twin Peaks is a weekly show, Now I'm going to get an hour each week.
And some people have felt really bad because they got so hooked into that 4 episodes or whatever in one night, and then they got down to 1. It was like they felt like
I had to save the second 2 for the next day, so I didn't get to do all 4 in a row.
Yeah, well, I did them all, and it was
that's right. I saw your video. It was like I was trying to even figure out, like, how'd you get this video up within, like, I think it was like literally you watched all 4 and then you recorded it. So it was like 5 hours after.
It was about 10 minutes after I finished the last episode.
Okay.
And it wasn't planned. I was like, well, I'll talk about it tomorrow. And I was like, no, let me just say what I, just think. And that
was great. I mean, you covered 4 hours of material in like an hour and a half or something, like within that night, which hardly, I don't think, I heard a few, I got my piece on 1 and 2 up at like 2:30 in the morning or something. The Gifted and the Damned podcast, they got one out that night, but just on episodes, might have only been episode 1. I think it might have been episode 1 and 2. I'm not sure, but it wasn't 1, 2, 3, 4.
But I
So
didn't go
like,
in order. I mean, it was just a rambling.
yeah, right. But I mean, you were covering all existing Twin Peaks right away.
Well,
So that was pretty
I
impressive.
think what made that video exciting for some people was because they didn't have the streaming out option. So I got so many comments going, "How the hell did you see episodes 3 and 4?"
Oh, they didn't even know that that's
No.
what you were. Were they like mad that they were spoiled, or?
No. Because I said this is about episodes 1 through 4. So if you don't want
Okay,
to
yeah.
hear, but they were like, "How the hell did you see these two?" And I was like, It's on the app." I mean,
Oh, they hadn't heard about that. Yeah.
yeah, they were just watching on TV. So
Oh man.
anyway, all right, guys. Well, thank you so much for watching
All right, thank you.
tonight. I really appreciate it, and I will see you soon. Take it easy, guys. Bye.